Hi everyone, please subscribe to my channel. Blood Immortal. See playlist for other chapters and novels. Join now our Telegram channel now and enjoy exclusive early access. t.me/blood_immortal_official. I do not translate the novels. Credits goes to original translator and author of the novel. I only make it as an audiobook so it would be easier to just listen while doing other things. Credits goes to the author of the novel. I convert stories to audiobook for mental health, for multitasking purpose, for accessibility and time saving. Listening to audiobook is also beneficial for people who have disability. It improves our listening skills and improve our English comprehension, vocabulary and other things. So, thank you for listening. Thank you and thank you very much for your support. Chapter 961 Are all of you bloody mentally sick? Chapter 961. Are all of you bloody mentally sick? Holy fuck, why are there so many humans here? Lin Fan could not make out the scene before him. Wasn't it said that this was a place that only utmost powerful beings could enter? Then where in the world did these humans spout out from? But honestly, humans were really just the most awesome of them all. All of a sudden, there were this many humans popping up here. He had better look for some reinforcements to fight it out with the utmost powerful beings later on. Oi, where are you guys from? Lin Fan yelled out at the top of his lungs. But to Lin Fan's surprise, those bunch of fellas there did not seem to be too concerned with him. They maintained their guard against him. In fact, they even seemed as though they wanted to kill him. I'm a human as well. We're all comrades of the same race. Can't you guys just bloody reply? Lin Fan yelled out once more. But, he could have never guessed what was happening on the other side right now. Senior brother, what's that fella standing on top of the head of that earth abyssal flame beast? And what does that roar of his mean? A woman wearing green robes and bearing an exquisite face looked at her senior brother with adoring eyes. HMPH, since he's together with the earth abyssal flame beasts, I think he should probably be the leader around these parts. Lu Qingshan scoffed out coldly. He then looked at the group of his junior brothers and sisters. All of you, watch out for your safety. I'll head up first to kill him while you guys deploy the formation to kill the rest of these earth abyssal flame beasts. Yes, senior brother. The masses nodded their heads before stretching out their palms and channeling a formation. As long as their senior brother were to kill that leader of theirs, they would deploy the formation immediately and slay the earth abyssal flame beasts cleanly. There were at least tens of thousands of those earth abyssal flame beasts in his huge army that was incoming. If they could have all of them slain, the amount of crystal shards that could be gathered would definitely be vast as the oceans. Pishu. By now, Lin Fan had practically lost all his voice yelling out, but somehow, it was as though those humans up ahead were retards. They wouldn't even reply to a single word of his. Bloody mother Sea King dogs. And at this moment, Lin Fan realized that there was a man rushing over towards him. He then let out a smile. This human is pretty strong. To think that he would be at the immemorial ancient state upper level cultivation state. How in the world is this human so strong to the point he's almost a match for me now? Lin Fan was almost petrified right now. But, when he thought about it, this should be the case as well. Humans were extremely gifted. If there could be someone as talented and exceptional such as himself, it was no surprise that there could be one or two more just like him. Brother, what's your name? I'm called Lin Fan. Also, what is this place? But Lin Fan did hide away that Mother * Sea King Human King title of his. He felt like that might seem a little too overbearing. It was hard to say that the other party might not take it the wrong way. Before he knew the other party better, it was safer to be a little more low profile. Roar. But at this moment, the earth abyssal flame beast beneath Lin Fan's feet started roaring out. All of the other earth abyssal flame beasts followed suit as a series of maddened roars surged up into the sky. It was as though the fella that had just arrived was someone they bore a huge grudge against. When Lin Fan caught sight of this situation, he exploded out. What was all of this for? This guy was a human as well. These guys had better be friendlier. But, just as Lin Fan was about to open his mouth and tell them that, a cold flash streaked out beside him. Lin Fan felt his heart tighten as he jerked his head up. All he saw was that the human who had bolted out at him started flicking his wrist, causing the meter-long green-colored sword in his hands to flutter and create petal patterns out of the void. All of these ripples spread out circle after circle. A bright sword flash radiated out across the entire place before that sharp sword will of his converged onto the sharpest spot of the sword and pierced out straight at Lin Fan. In the blink of an eye, that sword had already arrived out between Lin Fan's brows. Guys, check it out. That's our senior brother's void sword technique. No matter the distance, as long as you're locked out, he can instantly appear before the other party. Remember that, what's his name, that had dared to come challenge our senior brother in the past and was just killed by a single sword instantly? The disciple asked. Senior brother is so strong. That single sword will of his is extremely boundless. Even from such a distance, I can feel the hair at the back of my head standing up. If senior brother wishes to kill us, I think we would have nowhere to run at all. The fate of that leader has already been sealed. He's definitely going to be killed by our senior brother. Holy FCK, Lin Fan yelped out. He hadn't expected this comrade to come and strike out at him. Did this mother CKER have any conscience left in him? Your father didn't do anything to provoke you, right? However, that sword technique was really fast indeed. If not for the fact that Lin Fan's senses were extremely sharp, he might not have even reacted to it yet. But, even now that he had reacted to it, it was all too late. The light that was converged on the tip of the sword had already gathered right between Lin Fan's brows. Clang, a metallic sound clanged out. Lin Fan was entirely pissed right now. What the FCK did you have to backstab your father for? Lu Qingshan could not understand what Lin Fan was saying at all. From his point of view, this leader was just flying into a rage over this move of his. But, what he could not get was how this leader had such powerful strength. To think that that single sword of his would be useless. Impossible. At this moment, Lu Qingshan wanted to pull himself back. The strength of this leader was far from ordinary, and wasn't as simple as he had thought of it to be. Holy FCK, to think that you would act like a mute in front of your father. Do you really bloody think that yours truly would not dare to whack his own comrades? Lin Fan was totally enraged right now. Stretching out his fingers, he grabbed the sword body of the other party while roaring out, "Are you AFC King retard? Yours truly has been talking to you nice and proper the entire time, but bloody hell. You came at me without a single FC King reason. Do you really think that yours truly is a good pushover?" But, in the eyes of Lu Qingshan, this leader was just going berserk. He then used up all his strength and flicked his wrist, sending an endless amount of sword wills penetrating through. However, Lin Fan's physical body state had long reached that of immemorial ancient full cultivation state. This bit of damage truly did not have much impact on him. Tell me, who in the bloody world are you? If you continue to shut up, yours truly is going to kill you. Lin Fan grabbed onto that sword body and continued using strength, intent on dragging the other party over. Lu Qingshan's brows furrowed as he released the longsword in his hands before flying off into the distance. The strength of that leader had truly surpassed his calculations. All of those junior disciples who had been watching their senior brother's display of might were all dumbfounded by now. How could this be? That leader could actually snatch that sword of senior brother. I don't know, he's too strong. Senior brother has already given up on his green god sword. Hurry up, let us hurry and help our senior brother. At this moment, all of those disciples burst forth with a tremendous amount of power before channeling out their formation. Senior brother, let us help you. Lin Fan was just about to explode right now. What was going on with these fellas? At the same time, he was starting to realize that he did not seem to be able to understand what they were saying. So, who in the world were these people? Right now, Lin Fan was just really bothered by everything. But despite that, he did not want to think too much anymore. Since they wanted to fight, then they would get a fight. Lin Fan wielded the longsword he had grabbed over in his hands. Instantly, he felt the weapon spirit within the longsword struggling furiously as though it was trying to break free from him. You had better be well behaved. Lin Fan roared out and suppressed the weapon spirit immediately before focusing his gaze up in the distance. All of you are simply way too arrogant. You really think that yours truly is a pushover, right? Today, I'll let you guys know of how strong yours truly is. Lin Fan bolted upright into the heavens. A torrential sword will burst forth from his body. At the same time, when Lu Qingshan felt the sword will that was bursting forth from the leader, his heart tightened. Activate the formation to kill that demon. Yes, Qinming remarkable formation. At this moment, a boundless power burst forth from that formation. This power was ferocious and gushing, far from something simple. Slay. On the other side, Lin Fan could not care more about anything else right now either. Since these guys dared to strike out, yours truly wouldn't mind killing them. Chapter 962 True Immortal Role. Chapter 962, True Immortal Role. Those are some skills there. Lin Fan slashed out with his sword, but his expression was extremely solemn even then. There seemed to be something wrong with these humans here. But, at this moment, he couldn't care less about it. Since these guys wanted to kill him, there was no way he could just stand there and not fight back. Qinming remarkable formation. This was something that made use of the powers of the universe. Along with the fact that the cultivation states of these disciples weren't weak, the amount of power produced was far from ordinary. Boom! Instantly, an explosion boomed out as the entire world started quaking violently. Lu Qingshan hadn't expected that the powers of this leader would be this strong. That upright body of his was just like a heavenly sword right now. Using my body as a sword, the sword shall penetrate the firmaments. Boom! An invincible sword will burst forth from Lu Qingshan's body. This sword will was 100 times more horrifying than the previous one. This was the extreme of the sword will, using one's body as the sword in order to gather the true essence of the sword. When all the disciples around caught sight of their senior brother turning into a sword, they could not help but burst out in cheers. There's no doubt senior brother is the number 50th powerful being on the true immortal roll. This skill is a secret skill that's exclusive to our sect. To think that senior brother would have been able to comprehend it. That leader is dead meat for sure. Everyone, just hold out for a little longer. As long as senior brother's sword will gathers to its peak state, that leader would be done for, no matter how strong he is. Not good. To think that there are actually signs of the formation cracking apart. The strength of that leader is simple way too strong. Even if we have to give it our all, we have to ensure that he's restrained. At this moment, these disciples spat out a mouthful of essence blood. This was where the essence of their bodies lied, and yet, they fused it into the formation at this moment. This situation going on right now attracted the attention of multiple other disciples from the different sects through the endless time and space. They too had felt this tremendous sword will. Amongst those disciples, a single man who bore an arrogant expression and was draped in white robes gave his robes a sweep. With that motion of his, all the beasts in front of him were annihilated. Seeing this, all the other surrounding disciples rushed up and congratulated him. Interesting, just who in the world could push Lu Qingshan to such an extent? The man in white robes smirked out before saying softly, "Go. Let us go take a look." At this moment, Lin Fan looked at the man up ahead, who had turned into a sword, and frowned, "Bloody hell. Just what in the world is up with these fellas? Did yours truly kill your entire families or something for you guys to come at yours truly with your lives the moment you see me? Not only that, even these ultimate moves are being unleashed here. Bloody goddamn it." At this moment, the aura of Lu Qingshan had already reached a pinnacle state as he jerked his eyes wide open, and two sharp sword wills burst forth from them. Right now, Lu Qingshan was the sword will emanated out from him, sliced through the void and rustled everything. The amount of power being given off was not to be underestimated. "Die!" Lu Qingshan roared out with a frosty tone, filled with the intent to destroy everything before him. Boom! In that instant, a heavenly sword slammed down from the void as though it could pierce through all of eternity and the ancient. Bloody hell, this is really getting overboard with the bullying. Right now, Lin Fan was totally enraged. This was too damned audacious. The heavenly sword descended from the heavens as that sharp gleam sliced through everything. The entire world seemed as though it had been split into half. And right when the heavenly sword was about to reach Lin Fan's head, he raised his hand and held it into stopping. Lu Qingshan was stunned. That sword was something that contained everything he had. To think that this leader would be able to hold it off this easily. Brazen! Lin Fan bellowed out ferociously as a tremendous force surged forth from the ground. As he closed his palm, the heavenly sword shattered immediately. Lu Qingshan's face was drained of color as his expression took a stark change, followed by him spitting out a mouthful of fresh blood. How could this be? When the many disciples caught sight of this scene, their faces turned into shock in a flash. Lin Fan did not say anything more. Striding forward with a step, his tone was extremely tyrannical. "All of you fellas are just looking to die, aren't you?" That single step was as though it was taken by a colossal giant. With his feet as the core, energy ripples spread out circle after circle. That formidable might of his suppressed the entire scene. The core of the formation broke down immediately, without being able to fight back even once. Under the suppression of this boundless power, all of those disciples spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Every single one of those disciples had a look of fright in their eyes. They hadn't expected that the leader would actually possess a strength of this level. Strong. This was simply way too strong. Just what in the world do you guys mean by this? Lin Fan hollered out in rage. Even though what Lin Fan spoke in was human tongue, in the eyes of these other humans, he was just roaring and shouting in a mad rage. Retreat! Lu Qingshan did not hesitate at all as he roared out. His body flashed as he attempted to make his escape out of this place. He hadn't expected to bump into such a ferocious creature within this secret ground. Even a powerful being that was in the top 10 of the true immortal role might not be able to take down this leader right here. HMPH. Thinking of running, how could Lin Fan not make out the intention of these fellas here? He then spread his palm open and sealed the entire heaven and earth here. All of you had better FC King speak up, Lin Fan said. Right now, Lin Fan was already starting to understand the situation. Perhaps, these fellas here did not belong to any of the thousands of races out there. The faces of Lu Qingshan and the others were totally alarmed in shock right now. They had realized that the void around here had been sealed up by this leader entirely. Just what was this creature here? Not only could he take on Lu Qingshan's most powerful move with his bare hands, he could even suppress all of them with ease. This was a strength that could even match up to the true immortals. Senior brother, what should we do? A disciple asked. This leader is way too strong. Compared to those earth abyssal flame beasts, he's countless of times stronger. Another female disciple exclaimed in horror. Lu Qingshan's face was extremely terrible right now. In fact, it was pale as a sheet. The damage that he had taken from that move earlier on was simply way too great. Isn't this brother Qingshan of the true immortal role? What's up with this state you're in right now? Just at this moment, a voice traveled out of the void behind. A white-robed man sliced the void open with his finger. Behind him, a group of people appeared between the heaven and earth. Young Mr. Xiao Yao. When Lu Qingshan caught sight of who it was that had arrived, his face changed. It was as though he felt ashamed of being caught in such a wretched state by the other party. This young Mr. Xiao Yao was ranked 15 on the true immortal roll. His strength was extremely formidable, not someone Lu Qingshan could go up against straight. To think that there would be such a powerful creature within this secret ground. I wonder how many beings of ours it must have massacred for it to transform to such a state. Young Mr. Xiao Yao swept his glance over at Lin Fan before commenting out casually with a slight hint of disdain in his tone. Senior brother Xiao Yao, to think that a creature as such could have crushed Lu Qingshan to this state. I'm afraid Lu Qingshan's reputation far exceeds his actual strength. That's right. For a powerful being who was ranked 50th on the true immortal roll to be suppressed so badly by this creature, if word of this were to get out, one would definitely laugh their entire jaws off. The disciples in the back started gossiping rampantly. Every single word was like a sharp blade that pierced straight in the heart of Lu Qingshan. HMPH. Lu Qingshan snorted out coldly before retorting on his own, this creature is far from ordinary. Even if it's you, young Mr. Xiao Yao, you are definitely not a match for it either. Lu Qingshan, don't think that you can try playing at my emotions to agitate me. If you wish for me to help you, you can try begging. Young Mr. Xiao Yao smirked out. Lin Fan's brows furrowed, yet another bunch had arrived. Just what were these guys here? And by the look of their attitude, it seemed as though they were conversing. At this moment, Lin Fan suddenly gave a wild guess. Could there be some other worlds out there apart from the thousands of worlds? When this guess struck his mind, Lin Fan was starting to feel like it was getting more possible by the second. Lamb _ a few things here. The true immortal roll is something like an honor roll, except that it's for true immortals. What are true immortals? Beats me. Something new as well. The Ra's for Xiao Yao literally mean carefree. So, the plot is definitely getting extremely thick right now. First the Heavenly Lord, now true immortals. What's up? Chapter 963 Everyone is retarded. Chapter 963, Everyone is retarded. And, it was just as young Mr. Xiao Yao had thought. Lu Qingshan was truly trying to agitate him. The true immortal roll was a list that was set down by some almighty being from the endless mainland, and those on it could be considered as substitutes for true immortals. This roll could communicate with the heaven and earth, and could see through one's potential. This young Mr. Xiao Yao was ranked 15 on the true immortal substitute roll, and his strength was way stronger than that of Lu Qingshan, being at the immemorial ancient full cultivation state. Right now, this mysterious leader that was coming along with the earth abyssal flame beasts was seeming extremely formidable. Even after using everything that he had learned over his life, Lu Qingshan wasn't even a match for him. And now that this young Mr. Xiao Yao had arrived, it brought for Lu Qingshan a glimpse of hope. If this young Mr. Xiao Yao were to just stand by the sidelines and do nothing at all, Lu Qingshan and his junior disciples might very well fall here. The thing that Lu Qingshan was most concerned about was this life of his. Within the sect, he was a genius disciple who had an unlimited potential and a great life before him. If he were to die in the hands of these beasts, he would definitely be filled with indignance in his heart. Lu Qingshan, beg me to save you and your young mister will save you. Otherwise, just be prepared to get shredded by these beasts here. I reckon that your death would probably delight many people to no ends. Young Mr. Xiaoyao remarked casually. The face of Lu Qingshan was angered right now. But, he bore with it in his heart. Given the current situation, he had no other choice but to let young Mr. Xiaoyao have his way. How? Young Mr. Xiaoyao spread out the hand fan in his palms. There was a painting of mountains on that hand fan of his, and he gave off a sturdy and remarkable aura. Lin Fan observed everything that was going on before him. Things seemed to be getting a little complex right now. He knew that these fellas were conversing. However, as for the general situation and topic of their conversation, he knew jack's tea about it. But, to Lin Fan's surprise, the white-robed man actually had a cultivation state of immemorial ancient full cultivation level. This was something that didn't make any sense at all. Bloody hell, don't you guys know how to speak in human tongue at all? Lin Fan hollered out. However, this single holler of Lin Fan came across as nothing but a mad roar in the eyes of Lu Qingshan and the others. Lu Qingshan felt his heart skip a beat. Where the forest lives, there will be wood to burn. The humiliation he received today, he would definitely pay it back one day. Please render your assistance in saving me, young Mr. Xiaoyao. Lu Qingshan spoke up. Ha ha ha, young Mr. Xiaoyao roared out in laughter. He then looked over at the people around him. To think that ranking number 50 of the true immortal role, Lu Qingshan, would actually beg me for help. Since that's the case, your young mister here shall come forth with a heart of benevolence to save that dog life of yours. Ha ha ha, all the surrounding disciples burst out into laughter that was mixed with disdain as well. Lu Qingshan was filled with extreme grievances. But at this moment, there was nothing he could do about it except enduring. He had to endure through it. As for the junior disciples around him, they were feeling flustered in their hearts as well. To think that senior brother Qingshan would actually seek help from young Mr. Xiaoyao. However, they understood that the strength of young Mr. Xiaoyao was far from ordinary. He was someone who was ranked number 15th on the true immortal substitute role. Isn't it just the earth abyssal flame beasts? Mere bunch of ants. The face of young Mr. Xiaoyao tightened up as he smirked out. He then gave the hand fan in his palms a slight wave. And yet, that simple and casual wave of his fan burst forth with an incredibly tremendous aura. An astral wind swept across the heaven and earth just like a surging wave that gushed out to suppress all the earth abyssal flame beasts before him. That's the infinite mountain landscape of senior brother Xiaoyao. A single fan strike that bears an unpredictable amount of power. The fates of these earth abyssal flame beasts had long been laid down. They are to become mere crystal shards. However, the leader of those beasts is somewhat strange. To think that he could actually materialize into a body. Guys, take a look at that leader. He's just standing there motionlessly. He must have been scared silly by the aura of young Mr. Xiaoyao. Ha 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 ha. The innumerable cluster of earth abyssal flame beasts roared out in fury. They could feel an extremely strong killing intent that was pushing down against them. Even though they were beasts, they possessed intellect. But at this moment, no matter how enraged they were, they could not defend against it at all. And just at this moment, Lin Fan moved steadily. Slapping out with a single palm, he shattered the infinite mountain landscape. The face of young Mr. Xiaoyao changed as he let out a surprised look. Interesting. To think that that leader could have held off my move. Seems like he's got some capabilities. Young Mr. Xiaoyao smirked out before stepping forth as his white robes exploded out. However, it all ends now. Young Mr. Xiaoyao closed his hand fan and drew a few lines with it within the void. It was as though he was drafting out a cage from thin air. Mountainous earth jail, boundless caging forever. Shing. At this moment, the void vibrated out. By the time Lin Fan reacted to it, his body had been captured by a gigantic hand. Lin Fan's brows furrowed. This fella has got some skill, doesn't he? Ha ha, an ant will always be an ant. Young Mr. Xiaoyao laughed out suavely. Bravo, senior brother. Even though this beast had walloped Lu Qingshan to such a state, senior brother was still able to capture him just like that and subdue him down. The surrounding disciples cheered on. The moment Lu Qingshan heard these words, his eyes shone menacingly. Damn it, god damn it. This was a grudge that he would definitely avenge one day. Young Mr. Xiaoyao curled his fingers and pulled Lin Fan over, then gripped at his throat with it. This leader is quite something though. Interesting. Lin Fan did not resist at all. These ridiculous living beings were making him pretty curious about them now. At this moment, as Lin Fan was being gripped at his throat by young Mr. Xiaoyao, he was at an extremely close distance from this young Mr. Xiaoyao. Bloody hell, can you FC King understand what your father is saying here or not? Lin Fan asked. Senior brother, look, this beast is still roaring out. By the looks of it, he seems to be wanting to break free from your grasp, senior brother. Honestly, that's just a fool's dream. A disciple remarked. That's only natural now. What sort of an existence is our senior brother? The powerful being ranked number 15 on the true immortal substitute roll. He isn't someone that Lu Qingshan can hope to compare against. Ha ha ha, when young Mr. Xiaoyao heard the adulations of the crowd, he burst out laughing momentarily. But right at this moment, that smile of his froze up. That extremely dashing face of young Mr. Xiaoyao suddenly grimaced as though he had just received an unavoidably huge damage of sorts to his body. The only thing that could be seen right now was Lin Fan's leg that was stuck right in the middle of the young Mr. Xiaoyao's crotch. Bloody hell, just where in the world did these guys spout out from? To think that they could be this retarded. To think that he believed he could hold down yours truly with just a single hand. And not only that, allowing yours truly to get so close to him. Isn't this just courting death? Without saying anything more, Lin Fan deployed his True Origins crushing kick. This was a supreme god skill that basically crippled anyone who was struck by it no matter who they were. Arg, the face of young Mr. Xiaoyao was terrible beyond anything else right now. That initially fair skin tone of his was now flushed red like a pig's liver, as a tragic wail rang out. Senior brother, all the disciples panicked. Get the hell away. Lin Fan instantly took out his 9-5 legendary brick and slammed the young Mr. Xiaoyao into fainting right away, then tossed him into his paradise. He would take a good look and do some research on this fella later on. When Lin Fan looked at the other people before him, he frowned slightly. And just as he was still trying to think of what to do, all of those disciples struck out, and countless of moves rained down on his body. At this moment, Lin Fan was thoroughly enraged. Bloody F***ck your mother holy sh**t. Yours truly didn't provoke you guys, and now you're all coming at once. Get the F***ck lost. Feeling frustrated, Lin Fan slapped out with his palm. He did not even care whether there were chicks amongst them. He just slapped all of them to death with his palm. Bam! Explode. With that, a blood mist shrouded the area. At this moment, Lu Qingshan and the others were absolutely flabbergasted. Chapter 964 Waves of Powerful Beings One After Another. N-O-V-E in .c Om. Chapter 964 Waves of Powerful Beings One After Another. How could this be? Young Mr. Xiaoyao, how could he have been defeated so easily? Lu Qingshan was dumbfounded right now. His eyes were opened as wide as those of a cow, glaring ahead with a look of absolute disbelief. That is a powerful being who is ranked number 15 on the true immortal substitute roll. Just where in the world did this leader spout out from? How could he be this formidable? All the disciples were extremely terrified at this moment as well. They had initially thought that the moment young Mr. Xiaoyao were to strike out, this leader of the beasts would definitely be subdued. But, it was only now that they understood the circumstances. In the face of this leader of the beasts, what was the young Mr. Xiaoyao? There were no fanciful tricks nor intense battle to be watched. He had lost just like that. In the next moment, Lin Fan landed in front of Lu Qingshan. As far as he was concerned, it was time to just kill them and be done with it. Oh, great leader, please spare my life. At this moment, Lu Qingshan was extremely nervous as he prostrated on the ground and begged miserably. He hoped that this leader before him could spare his life. And right at the moment when Lu Qingshan lowered his head, his gaze shone with a sinister aura. Those hands of his which were hidden beneath his body moved ever so slightly as though they were channeling some killer move. Lin Fan did not reply or budge. All he did was stand there ever so silently. Spare my life, Lu Qingshan pleaded out before sneaking a glance at this leader. At this moment, the leader was standing there stupidly as though he was hypnotized by something. By now, Lu Qingshan's killer move had been channeled to its peak. Go to hell, Lu Qingshan bellowed out as the sharp sword will in his hands burst forth. Even though it was only the size of a thumb, it punched straight out at Lin Fan's chest. Clang, a metallic sound rang out. How could this be? Lu Qingshan's face was just totally astounded. How could this backstabbing move of his not have any effect at all? With that, Lin Fan opened up his palm and slapped down. To Lu Qingshan, it felt as though he was being crushed by a gigantic and boundless mountain. Bam! There were no bones or flesh left as he just evaporated into dust. Ah! All of the other disciples panicked out in fright. They wanted to run, however, their legs were wobbling so tremendously in fear that they could barely open up their feet. Leader, please spare us. We're willing to be your slave. The women cried out and posed in all sorts of slutty manners. When Lin Fan caught sight of this, he broke into a cold shiver and felt like puking out in disgust. This was the repercussion of FC King for many years in a row. Boom! Just at this moment, there was some commotion coming from up ahead, causing Lin Fan to turn his head over. Seemed like something was going on over there as well. Only, he did not know what was happening. Without holding back, Lin Fan killed all of these people here. Pishu! In the next moment, Lin Fan dove right into the void and headed off into the distance. Within the endless mainland were many people who were keeping a watch on the rankings of the true immortal substitute role. It had been a long time since there had been any changes to this true immortal substitute role. And just at this moment, a change indeed took place. Guys, check it out. Lu Qingshan has just disappeared from the role. What's going on? Could Lu Qingshan have turned into a true immortal? That's impossible. The other possibility must be that Lu Qingshan has died. Outside the secret ground, when various elders of different sects felt the changes of the true immortal substitute role, their faces changed as well. This was especially the case for the elders who were of the same sect as Lu Qingshan. Their faces changed starkly in disbelief. How could this be possible? To think that Lu Qingshan would have died in the secret ground. Just what in the world was going on? Could it be that disciples from other sects had struck at him? At this moment, Lin Fan was hidden in the void. When he caught sight of everything before him, his face tensed up slightly. There was a man who looked like a war god and was wielding a long halberd in his hands. He was fighting with 3 demonic gods of the ancient race right now. And of all people, amongst the demonic gods of the ancient race was the death demonic god Xian. That was the chick that loved abusing him. The other 2 demonic gods were unrecognizable for Lin Fan. They looked to be in a weird shape, and were extremely hideous. Senior brother, just what sort of monsters are these? How come I've never ever seen them before? That woman looks extremely seductive and devilish. The man who seemed like a war god was filled with an extremely strong battle intent. The long halberd in his hands cleaved out at the entire world with an exceptional strength. For him to be able to stand up against 3 demonic gods of the ancient race in a fight evenly, his strength was honestly pretty remarkable. And just at this moment, a red mist appeared up in the void, with a series of laughing sounds arising. Huang Tianji, to think that these 3 beasts would be evenly matched against you. Seems like there are many existences we do not know of within this secret ground, This voice was extremely high-pitched, and gave off an inexplicably creepy feeling when heard. Amongst the disciples that were standing behind Huang Tianji, some of the female disciples let out frightened looks because of it. Huang Tianji's brows furrowed. Young Mr. Huan Shi, what do you mean by that? Ha, I mean absolutely nothing. It's just that beasts who are able to stand up against the Huang Tianji, who is ranked number 2 on the true immortal substitute role. Now that is something that piques the interest of your young mister here. When the red mist dissipated, a devilish-looking man stood floating up in the void. That seductive gaze of his shone with an infinitely evil look. He then cast his gaze onto the body of the death demonic god. HMPH. Huang Tianji scoffed out coldly. However, he was truly bewildered in his heart. Just what sort of changes had this secret ground undergone? It wasn't that he hadn't entered this secret ground before in the past. And yet, he had never ever bumped into beasts with such formidable powers. The powers of these beasts were of immemorial ancient full cultivation state. Even if it were on the true immortal substitute role, they would be able to reach top 10 in ranking. Leave that woman to me. Young Mr. Huan Shi pointed out at the death demonic god with a sinister voice, sizing her up and down. Not bad, not bad. Her body is pretty hot, with unmatched features on her face. The ones I met earlier on were all extremely hideous more than anything else. What did you just say? You've met with more of them? Huang Tianji asked. Naturally, all of them were great tonics. Compared to the crystal shards of the earth abyssal flame beasts, they were much thicker and nourishing. Young Mr. Huan Shi laughed out before sweeping his robes and flinging out a dried-up corpse. When Lin Fan caught sight of the corpse, his face changed. This was especially so after he caught sight of the green, putrid mist that was shrouding that corpse. Lin Fan knew that the owner of that corpse must be the plague demonic god. But, to think that the other party would be able to kill him. This was a huge blow to Lin Fan. Just what sort of backgrounds did these guys have? To think that their strength would be formidable to such an extent. At the same time, there was something that pissed Lin Fan off greatly, the fact that this fella had slain the plague demonic god. That was the experience points of yours truly. Beast, This guy was a degenerate. And just as Lin Fan was contemplating about these things, both parties began to fight again once more. Ever since the appearance of this red-robed man, the situation has taken a huge change. The death demonic god did not seem to be a match for the red-robed man, and was being repressed on all fronts. Even if she burst forth with all of her strength, it was of no use at all. As for the other two demonic gods, the situation did not seem optimistic for them either. The man who was wearing a battle armor clearly had an unrivaled fighting prowess. Submit and accept defeat, little b****tches. At this moment, the death demonic god let out a frightened look. Young Mr. Huan Shi spread out his palm and slammed down from the void above, bent on capturing the death demonic god. The heart of the death demonic god skipped furiously. She hadn't expected there to be such a strong living being in this secret ground. And, just as she was unable to fight back any longer, a figure appeared in front of her all of a sudden. Chapter 965 Great Losses and Casualties. Chapter 965, Great Losses and Casualties. Boom! Suddenly, a tremendous power ruptured out. Young Mr. Huan Shi frowned. To think that this palm strike of his would be fended off. At this moment, Lin Fan appeared before the death demonic god and punched out with his fist. When it collided with that palm strike of young Mr. Huan Shi, an enormous impact gushed out across the world. Lin Fan's brows furrowed. What a formidable collision. It's you. The death demonic god was slightly taken aback. She hadn't expected that the one to save her would be that human whom she had once wanted to whip. Yes. Lin Fan nodded his head before bursting forth with even more power to send that palm flying away. This secret ground that can help us transcend is indeed extremely dangerous. The death demonic god commented with lingering fears. At the same time, to her great bewilderment, there seemed to be something wrong with this whole place. She did not know whether the key condition for them to transcend lied with these mysterious creatures or not. At this moment, Lin Fan floated gently up in the void and looked at the flamboyantly gay fella before him. Interesting. To think that a beast such as yourself would be able to defend against a strike of your young mister. Since that's the case, show your young mister what capabilities you've got then. Young Mr. Huan Shi roared out as he flipped his palm around, causing a torrential red mist to rise up and hurtle out towards Lin Fan. On the opposite side, Lin Fan did not dodge at all. Instead, he just threw out a single punch that ripped through the entire void with a tremendous force. Young Mr. Huan Shi could not help but tense up against it. Boom! The void erupted out. The fact that Lin Fan was standing on even grounds with young Mr. Huan Shi in this fight was something that had those disciples extremely alarmed. Just what is up with that beast there? To think that he would be able to fight with young Mr. Huan Shi to such an extent. I have no idea, but, if we were the ones who had bumped into him, our lives might very well have been in danger. Guys, take a look. Young Mr. Huan Shi has been sent stumbling back. At this moment, Lin Fan's source of power erupted, and when he punched out with it, the entire void started to get contorted. Even though the strength of young Mr. Huan Shi was strong, he could not help but retreat continuously under this relentless assault of fists. As a result, his expression was gradually turning into rage from this embarrassment. He hadn't expected that an ordinary beast would have been able to push him to such a state. This was just detestable. All of a sudden, Lin Fan froze up slightly. It was as though he could sense that a gust of air had locked onto him and sealed his escape path. Without hesitating, he flicked out with 2 fingers towards the void. Bam! Bam! Lightning crackled out when Lin Fan's flick met with the long halberd of Huang Tianji, and a series of ripples circled out. Huang Tianji's face changed into one of disbelief. He had truly not met with someone who could block a single move of his with just 2 fingers. His face had never been grimmer. As for the surrounding disciples, they were just totally wide-eyed in astonishment. This beast was way too vicious, wasn't it? To think that it could duel with 2 powerful beings from the true immortal substitute role to this extent. This was just way too horrifying. Lin Fan's heart was extremely taken aback as well. The strength of these 2 fellas were far from simple. For a moment or so, he truly could not suppress them. And just at this moment, the void far in the distance started to explode out. Retreat back. When Lin Fan looked over to the void, he saw demonic god Pangu, the great sage, and fire water empress. All 3 of them bore extremely severe injuries as though they had just been dealt some huge blow. Holy FCK, what the FCK is going on with this? When Lin Fan caught sight of this, he was dazed for a moment. Just what sort of a ferocious being could actually give those 3 monsters such a difficult time? The power of demonic god Pangu was number 1 and boundless. And yet, Even he was sustaining grave injuries right now. This was way too unreal, wasn't it? Following behind the demonic god Pengu and the rest was a man who was draped in dragon robes. The expression of that man was extremely solemn. Every single action he took brought with it a tremendous amount of authority. When Huang Tianji and young Mr. Huan Shi caught sight of who it was that had arrived, their hearts skipped a beat and they were lost for words momentarily. Dragon Emperor, Qin Shungjin. How could this be? How could he be within this secret ground? Hasn't he already made it through to the true immortal state in the Genesis world? The face of young Mr. Huan Shi revealed a look of terror. N-O-V-E in .c ohm. This Qin Shungjin was once the number 1 ranked on the entire true immortal substitute roll. His strength was supernatural, and he was lauded as the seed with the strongest potential in the endless mainland. Even though he hadn't reached a true immortal state, he could have the powers to slay powerful beings of true immortal state. This was a supreme powerful being here. If he were to truly turn into a true immortal state powerful being, he might very well be the strongest of all the true immortals. This was not an existence that Huang Tianji or young Mr. Huan Shi could stand shoulder to shoulder against. Run! Without any hesitation, Lin Fan bolted off from the void towards the place he had come from earlier on. HMPH. Qin Shungjin snorted out coldly. That single snort was booming like the will of the heavens. Instantly, a gigantic golden dragon burst forth from behind him. This gigantic golden dragon was extremely boundless, just like a banner, as it set out to kill Lin Fan and the others straight away. When the demonic god Pengu caught sight of this, he roared out instantly, "Eternal power!" Shing! An illusory figure of the source of power appeared in the void ferociously before self-destructing. A formidable power rippled through the entire heaven and earth, annihilating everything in its path. By the time the void returned to its peaceful state, Qin Shungjin frowned and swept his dragon robes out. He hadn't expected that the living beings in this secret ground would be able to escape from the grasp of his hands. Do you guys know what those beasts are? Qin Shungjin looked at the both of them while asking. No idea. Young Mr. Huan Shi was actually feeling pretty unnerved, but he was trying his best to maintain his composure. HMPH. Qin Shungjin turned around to leave without wasting any more of his breath on them. At this moment, Lin Fan and the others had arrived at the area of the stone gate's entrance. The demonic god Pengu sprayed out a mouthful of fresh blood. So strong. Seems like it's no easy task to want to transcend. The demonic god Pengu said shakily. Earlier on, the demonic god Pengu had tapped into half the powers of this source of power to invoke that self-destruction. That was the only reason why they could have escaped from the hands of that mysterious, powerful being. The battle armor on the body of the great sage had long been worn out and tattered. It was evident that he had gone through an intense battle. Are you all right? Lin Fan looked at the Fire Water Empress while asking. I'm fine. The Fire Water Empress nodded her head in reply. However, her grim eyes told of a different story. Just what in the world is going on? Isn't this final secret ground the core of transcending? But, by the look of the situation earlier on, that didn't seem to be the case at all. Lin Fan remarked. I have no idea. However, it's definitely different from what we had thought it to be. The demonic god Pengu was still trying to heal up his wounds. However, his heart was utterly confused. And at this moment, utmost powerful beings and demonic gods appeared one after another with time. Why would it be like this? Just what were those things? How could they possibly possess such strength? The panicked demonic god has died. The old master eagle raven has died as well. The utmost powerful beings and demonic gods that were appearing all bore injuries on them. Furthermore, some of their injuries were extremely grave. Transcend. This is not transcending at all. This is just sending us to our deaths. Who have you guys met with? Lin Fan asked. A monk whose entire body was pitch black. Initially, your ancestor had thought that he was someone of the Buddha race. However, he wasn't, and not only that, his moves were extremely sinister and dark. We were no match for him at all. He even devoured old Master Samsung. Even when old Master Samsung self-destructed, he did not even cause a slight bit of injury to the other party. Horrifying. Way too horrifying. When Lin Fan looked at the situation around him, his expression could not help but turn solemn. This time around, it might really be one hell of AFCK fest. 1,200. This. Could all the others have fallen within? It was evident that sh*t had really gotten real as FCK here. Chapter 966. This seems like a decent idea. Chapter 966. This seems like a decent idea. The cries were endless, and so was the cursing. This time around, there were countless of casualties amongst the utmost powerful beings and the demonic gods. Lin Fan's heart was feeling an unusual amount of pain as well. All of those were precious experience points. And yet, they were gone just like that. What sort of a tragedy was that? Oh, how his nuts hurt. After a long time, everyone gradually regained their composure as they all looked up into the empty void, seeming to have totally lost all hope towards the future. Hooey hooey, ha ha ha. At this moment, an old master suddenly roared out into laughter while gazing at the sky. Transcend. This is transcending. Ha ha ha. After fighting for so many eras, what have we gained at the end of the day? All the utmost powerful beings fell silent at this moment. They had been fighting one another from the very beginning before eventually sleeping and awakening to this so-called transcending. But, what about now? There were countless of casualties, numerous utmost powerful beings had died within this secret ground this time. What have all of this been for? A helpless howl burst forth into the void. All we wanted to do was to transcend. We just want to live. And yet, there's no hope at all. When Lin Fan heard those voices, he could not help but sigh out in exasperation as well. The imposingness of the demonic god Pengu was no longer present while the great sage had taken off his battle armor and cast it aside by now. Actually, there's still a chance. Lin Fan spoke up. Flush. Everyone's gaze was cast onto Lin Fan. They truly hated the mother***Sea human king. But now, they could not bring forth their hatred any longer. No matter how many legendary items he had, it was all useless. There was still no way to transcend. Mother***Sea human king, what chance do you speak of? If you had any chance, would you still even be here right now? One of the old masters laughed out coldly before standing up and readying himself for the oncoming destruction. The demonic god Pengu and the others looked over at Lin Fan as well. They did not know what this chance he was speaking of was. When Lin Fan caught sight of the expressions of all these utmost powerful beings, he did not beat around the bush. I've suppressed one of those mysterious fellas. Perhaps, we might be able to get some knowledge through him and figure out just what is going on through all of this. N-O-V-E in.C Ohm. What? The moment Lin Fan set out with these words, everyone was completely startled. At the very beginning, none of them had even thought of wanting to capture those mysterious fellas. But, when they met the stronger existences later on, it was already too late for them even if they had wanted to capture anyone. All of you, watch properly now. Everything that we want to know about, he will be able to tell us. Lin Fan did not waste time on any crap and released young Mr. Xiaoyao from his paradise right away. Arg, the moment young Mr. Xiaoyao was out, he was seen clutching at his groin and howling out furiously. Those eyes of his were filled with wrath and rage. But, when he caught sight of the dense cluster of living beings that were gathered about him, his eyes were replaced with a look of horror. Lin Fan took out his brick and sent the young Mr. Xiaoyao fainting over once more. Technique of the source. Long river of fate. Lin Fan pointed out with his finger as a mysterious aura was emitted out from him, wrapping up young Mr. Xiaoyao. Instantly, a series of images appeared before the eyes of the masses. In that boundless world, there were countless of living beings and countless of sects. Now that he was looking through everything this guy had experienced, Lin Fan was starting to know about powerful beings that they had never known before. There were even many more who were way stronger than that last fella they had faced before escaping. And finally, the scene that attracted everyone's attention arrived. A place that seemed like a secret ground was breached by countless of these mysterious living beings. And thereafter, these living beings met with Lin Fan and the others. Rumors had it that this was where the Heavenly Lord Xinfeng had fallen, and this secret ground was then created from his body. The living beings from within are all born from the source of the Heavenly Lord Xinfeng. When Lin Fan read these text characters, his entire face changed. The other utmost powerful beings were equally stunned as though they were struck with disbelief. All of us are just manifestations from the source of some powerful being. When one of the old masters spoke of these words, everyone was just rooted blankly. Lin Fan was equally dumbfounded at the moment. After rummaging through his entire life, it was only now that he bloody found out that he was just living in the body of a dead man the entire time. This news came as too big of a shock, such that even Lin Fan felt that he could barely handle it. The thousands of races, the infinite worlds, the countless of worlds out there. Earth, all of these were just created by the source of a powerful being. Who was this Heavenly Lord Xinfeng? How could he be so bloody overpowered? And also, who in the bloody world was your father then? What was up with this system and what not then? At this moment, Lin Fan was truly about to lose it. But, he was still able to maintain his cool. To be able to cultivate to such a state, all the mental states of everyone present were extremely tough and firm as a rock. Even if they were to lose their minds for a short while, they would be able to regain their composure almost immediately. Now, everything finally makes sense. The demonic god Pengu spoke up. Pengu, how are we supposed to transcend then? We are only living beings that were born from a powerful being. How are we supposed to get out of here? The reason why we're able to sense the destruction of the era is probably that we're formed from the Heavenly Lord. That must be the reason why we're able to sense life and death. If we've lived for countless of eras now, it must mean that this Heavenly Lord must have already been dead for countless of eras as well. I'm afraid this is about the end right now. The source that he had remaining must have reached a point where it's unable to sustain the existence of the secret grounds anymore. And, if we're unable to transcend, we'll all definitely die here. The many utmost powerful beings started discussing. Perhaps there's still a chance at life left. The Fire Water Empress spoke up. What do you mean by that, Fire Water Empress? Many of the utmost powerful beings asked curiously. Did the reincarnation demonic god die? The Fire Water Empress asked. I'm over here. The reincarnation demonic god was a short and stumpy ancient race being. Amongst the other demonic gods of the ancient race, it was hard to notice his existence. Right now, there is only a single way out. We have to send someone out there and wait for him to come save us. The Fire Water Empress said. I'll do it. When the many utmost powerful beings heard it, they started volunteering themselves. Whoever got out meant that he would able to transcend. None of you are worthy of it. The only one worthy is the Mother Sea King Human King. The Fire Water Empress declared. Fire Water Empress, what do you mean by that? Everyone here knows that the Mother Sea King Human King is your man. You're just trying to get him out of this place, aren't you? The many utmost powerful beings were all done by now. HMPH. And yet, you dare to proclaim yourselves as utmost powerful beings. Don't tell me that you guys have truly failed to notice what's going on right now. The aura of the Mother Sea King Human King is the only one which is closest to the aura of those mysterious living beings. If it were any of you, the moment you guys are sent out, you will probably be killed by the powerful beings of that world before you can even get the chance to reincarnate. The Fire Water Empress retorted. Lin Fan was stunned. What in the world did this have to do with him yet again? But on second thoughts, this didn't seem like a bad idea either. If he were to stay here, the only way out was death. But, if he were to get out, there might be a chance at life. The utmost powerful beings took a close look at that mysterious living being that had been suppressed, then at the Mother Sea King Human King. Indeed, it was only that human who had an aura closest to this guy's. What if this fella decides not to save us after he's out? The utmost powerful beings asked. That wouldn't happen. I, Lin Fan, am a man who keeps my word. As long as I get out, I will definitely think up of a way to save you guys. Lin Fan said. Not believing, the utmost powerful beings shook their heads while saying. This is the final option left. Whether you believe it or not, you have to. Otherwise, everyone can just simply wait here for death. The Fire Water Empress said coldly. For a moment or so, the utmost powerful beings kept to themselves while contemplating about it. Finally, they came to an agreement. All right, I'll believe you. Mother Sea King Human King, I hope that you do not let us down. The utmost powerful beings said while looking at Lin Fan. Don't worry, don't worry. I'll definitely not let you guys down. Lin Fan was overwhelmed with joy right now. The Fire Water Empress looked at Lin Fan. This time around, it was a plunge of a gamble here to entrust all of their hopes onto this Mother Sea King Human King. Alright, everyone come over and start discussing together about how we should prepare and move things on after the Mother Sea King Human King gets out. This is a matter that concerns everyone's life and death. I hope all of you will take this seriously. However, before that, I think that we should purge away the hidden threats that remain around us. The Fire Water Empress said. What do you mean? The utmost powerful beings were taken aback, not understanding the meaning behind her words. HMPH, how long more do you intend to hide for? The brows of the Fire Water Empress furrowed as her boundless voice caused the void to explode apart. At that moment, the 7-saint-old dog, who had been hiding in the void the entire time, exploded as well. How in the bloody world did she manage to find out about your father here? Chapter 967. Chapter 967. At least these people will accompany us in burial. Bam, bam, the peaceful void started exploding out all of a sudden as a figure was pushed out from 7-saint-old dog. When Lin Fan caught sight of that figure, he could not help but chuckle out. Damn it, how did you discover me, Firewater Empress? Seven Saint Old Dog barked out as his eyes shone with a horrified look. He hadn't expected that after staying hidden so deeply, he would still be discovered. At the time when eternal god seeds started flooding out within the world, it had already been brought to my attention. But, to think that there would be someone who was manipulating everything from behind the scenes. The Firewater Empress said. When the eternal god seeds started appearing all over the world, the Firewater Empress had already realized that things were far from simple. Later on, when she conducted a thorough investigation into it, she realized that there was someone who was actually pushing everything from the dark. It was hard to predict everything in this world. Even if it were Seven Saint Old Dog, he had not thought that things would come to this point. According to the calculations of that mysterious master of his, being slowly corroded bit by bit would ensure that they would be able to suppress these utmost powerful beings. But, who would have thought that these utmost powerful beings would no longer be fighting with one another after coming out of that secret ground? This had the Seven Saint Old Dog caught at a loss about what to do at that moment. Seven Saint Old Dog, you've been hiding yourself the entire time. But, I doubt that you could have guessed that this would happen, right? Lin Fan asked while grinning. Mother *C King Human King, you had better shut up. If not for you, your saint here would not have been at this state right now. Seven Saint Old Dog roared out harshly once more. The reason why he was in such a wretched state right now was all caused by this B** starred before him. If not for this Mother *C King Human King, how would he be in a state where he was controlled by others, and had to remain hidden in the void the entire time? If it were any other time, Lin Fan would have loved for a good chat with the Seven Saint Old Dog. But, given the current situation, time was of the essence. There was no telling when those two stone gates would close themselves shut. If those stone gates were to shut close, it would be too late for them. Suppress him then, Lin Fan said. Yes, the Firewater Empress nodded her head. Even though they could not take down those powerful beings in the secret ground, suppressing this Seven Saint Old Dog was no tall task. The moment the Firewater Empress struck out, her fingers tore through the void and caused everything to sparkle like crystals. It was as though this was a world of fire and water right now. Shing, Seven Saint Old Dog could feel the void around him starting to tremble as he shrieked out. Damn it, this is accursed. Boom. In front of the Firewater Empress, Seven Saint Old Dog was just like a weakling who could not do anything at all. Master, save me, please save me, Master. Being grabbed in the hands of the Firewater Empress, Seven Saint Old Dog started screaming out towards the void as though he was seeking help from someone. HMPH. The Firewater Empress scoffed coldly as she sliced at the void with her fingers acting as knives. Everyone, strike out together. All right, the utmost powerful beings nodded their heads. They knew that if they did not band together at this critical moment, they could then only wait for the destruction of this era. At this moment, a thread of black mist wrapped itself around the body of Seven Saint Old Dog. This was a connection that the mysterious, powerful being had placed onto his body. Slay, bam, you bunch of ants. The Firewater Empress and the other utmost powerful beings had already sensed the connection of that consciousness. Even though that consciousness had managed to penetrate through to this place, it could only watch with open eyes as it got purged out. Arg, Seven Saint Old Dog had not expected that things would turn out as such. With a final howl, his body ruptured and turned into dust before disappearing between the world. Just who in the world is the mysterious person who was manipulating Old Master Seven Saint from behind the scenes? The Firewater Empress was bewildered in her heart. Even though they had managed to purge out that consciousness, she knew that they hadn't managed to deal any damage to the other party. Alright, everything has ended now. The Mother *C King Human King is our only hope right now. Even though we do not know what is going on with the world outside, I hope that everyone would be able to band together and send the Mother *C King Human King out. The Firewater Empress said. Don't worry, regarding this matter, we know what we should do. We can only hope that the Mother *C King Human King can stay true to his words. Even though many of the utmost powerful beings still bore doubt towards Lin Fan, given the current situation, they knew that they had no other choice. The reincarnation demonic god stood out at this moment. The reincarnation secret technique can allow one to reincarnate their consciousness. However, one must abandon all the living beings within their bodies. At the same time, one must seal up one's powers. The moment Lin Fan heard this, his face changed slightly before sighing out. Flicking out with his finger, the three worlds other than his paradise floated out. Thereafter, with a thought from his mind, all the living beings of the three worlds appeared within the world here. When the utmost powerful beings caught sight of this, they felt their hearts skip a beat. To think that this mother ** sea king human king would have cultivated 3 entire worlds. Where is this place? When the living beings who were residing in the 3 worlds caught sight of everything around them, their faces were filled with bewilderment. Master! Master! All of Lin Fan's closed ones appeared and came beside him immediately. Their faces were filled with exhilaration. Hubby! In the blink of an eye, Zan Yongxian's had arrived at a foreign place, which made her expression change. But, when she caught sight of Lin Fan, she ran beside him immediately. Not good. Lin Fan's heart skipped a beat. All of a sudden, he had realized that the face of the Fire Water Empress was starting to change. This was anger accompanied with jealousy. However, she had hidden her emotions extremely deeply. If one didn't pay attention, they might not have been able to tell at all. Hue hue, the Fire Water Empress laughed out. However, this was a laughter that was ever so sinister and creepy. Lin Fan wanted to say something, but the Fire Water Empress swept her robes aside. You don't have to say more. I'll settle things with you slowly after you're back. And if you don't return, all the better. See no evil, feel no troubles. Even though Zan Yongxian did not know what the Fire Water Empress meant by her words, she was someone who was extremely tactful. She noticed that the Fire Water Empress was exerting a tremendous pressure onto her. At the same time, through her eyes and her tone, Zan Yongxian could make out the rough meaning of everything. As long as one wasn't stupid, they would be able to understand. Elder sister, Zan Yongxian addressed her respectfully. But, when she caught sight of Lin Fan, the meaning of her gaze was also extremely clear. Good. You're dead meat. Even though the Fire Water Empress was infuriated in her heart, her expression was indifferent. I've lived for many more eras than you have. It's only natural that you address me as elder sister. At this moment, the Fire Water Empress exerted her dominance as the big wife. Master, where are we? Zhang Ergo asked puzzledly, not understanding what was going on. Master, by now, Zhichao was already a young adult. She stood tall and elegant, and was a goddess-level beauty back in the Xuanwang world. But, when she caught sight of these living beings who bore extremely boundless auras, she could not help but feel her heart tightening as well. Lin Fan summarized the events, and the masses who had appeared understood it all as well. As a result, their faces were filled with worry. The Fire Water Empress took a step forth and looked at the utmost powerful beings present. All of you can see it as well, right? The loved ones of the Mother * Sea King Human King are all here, and will coexist with us as well. If the Mother * Sea King Human King does not return, everything shall vanish along with the winds into nothingness. Are you guys satisfied now with such a huge risk he's taking here? The utmost powerful beings nodded their heads. The situation right now was better than one where he had nothing to care about. Even though these utmost powerful beings cared about nothing else other than their own safety, they could tell that the Mother * Sea King Human King had emotions lingering with these people here. If he were to fail, they could only resign themselves to fate. But, if he succeeded and yet chose to not return to save them, they could at least rest easy despite their indignance knowing that there were all these people who would be accompanying them in their burial. Chapter 968 Reincarnation. Chapter 968, Reincarnation. Time is pressing right now. We do not know when these stone gates will close. Once they do, even this last chance of ours will be gone entirely by then. The Fire Water Empress said. Lin Fan was a little nervous right now. He felt as though he was doing something big. Not only that, this big thing was no ordinary big thing. Initially, he had wanted to face everything with an optimistic outlook. But when he caught sight of the grim expressions of everyone around him, he could only hold everything back in and put on a solemn face as well. As for Chicky and the others, he was not going to bring them along lest they turn into a hindrance. After all, no one truly knew what the world out there was like. If it were way too dangerous, he would really be in for it. Fire Water Empress, please help me in taking care of them. Lin Fan said. Don't worry, I'll take good care of them. Brother Lin, with me, the great sage around, I will not let your human race endure any grievances unless I were to die. The great sage said. The demonic god Pengu stood out as well. With these 3 utmost powerful beings, Lin Fan heaved out a sigh of relief. And just at this moment, all the other utmost powerful beings and the demonic gods of the ancient race gave their word as well. In the next moment, the entire void rumbled. With this many utmost powerful beings laying down their oaths, the amount of tremors caused was extremely boundless. We hereby vow that from this day forth, all the various races will no longer fight with one another. When Lin Fan heard these vows, he truly heaved a sigh of relief. If that were truly the case, he would be able to set his mind at ease. And just at this moment, a creaking sound boomed out. The stone gates had started closing by themselves. N-O-V-E in .c ohm. Let us begin then, the Fire Water Empress said. Come on. Lin Fan nodded his head and relaxed his spirit and soul. The reincarnation demonic god focused his mind as a boundless aura emanated out of him. This was the power of reincarnation. Everyone, let us do it together. The Fire Water Empress requested as she swept her robes, sending out a long river of time. The utmost powerful beings did not hesitate either as they invoked the power of time to cage Lin Fan up within it. At this moment, Lin Fan could feel some changes going on through his body. Under the surge of this power, Lin Fan could feel his body gradually shrinking. The boundless power within his body was also starting to merge before eventually converging into a single point. Mother *C King Human King, we're going to seal up your powers now. When you reach the other side, you must hurry and find a way to unseal yourself. The seal demonic god said. Yes. Lin Fan nodded his head without any single bit of resistance towards all these changes that were about to happen to him. Fire and water fusion, all living things shall return to nature. The Fire Water Empress muttered out softly before grabbing the young Mr. Xiaoyao in her hands. She then extracted the essence energy of his source. Revert to origin, the young Mr. Xiaoyao screamed out before he perished. Hurriedly, the Fire Water Empress grabbed onto the ball of light that came out of him and placed it over Lin Fan's body. This will help to hide your body's aura. Once you head out there, you will not be discovered by the powerful beings of that world immediately. Shing. Gradually, Lin Fan's consciousness started converging into a ball before he fell into a deep slumber. Send the Mother *C King Human King out. At this moment, a boundless amount of power burst forth from all the utmost powerful beings. When all these beams of power intertwined with one another, the power generated was one that was unmatched and extremely horrifying. Boom! Instantly, this beam of light that Lin Fan was wrapped in sent him into the void and beyond those stone gates. This speed was something that seemed to surpass the very concept of speed, going beyond the restriction of time and space. Boom! After Lin Fan entered the stone gates, they slammed themselves shut furiously. Master, hubby, when the masses caught sight of everything before them, they were filled with reluctance. As the Fire Water Empress caught sight of those shut stone gates, she sighed out in her heart as well. She could only hope that he would succeed. At this moment, Lin Fan regained his consciousness. When he looked at the state that he was in right now, he could not help but feel a sense of exasperation. Bloody hell, he couldn't even budge a single inch. And not only that, his entire body was gone, as everything had turned into energy that was focused onto a single point. But, my physical body state can't disappear now, no. The thing that Lin Fan was the most afraid of was his physical body state disappearing. Filled with trepidation, he hurriedly pulled out the panel of the system. Physical body state. Immemorial ancient full cultivation state. When he saw that status, he heaved out a sigh of relief. Bloody hell, if his physical body state were gone, he would truly be FCKED. Right now, Lin Fan was crossing the secret ground, and saw those mysterious disciples gradually retreating and leaving the place. Initially, Lin Fan had thought that the other party would discover his existence. But, when he passed by one of those fellas, he realized that the other party felt nothing at all. Seeing that, he couldn't help but chuckle out. Seemed like this was the power of the reincarnation demonic god. He wasn't even in the same dimension as them. Very quickly, Lin Fan exited from that secret ground. When Lin Fan turned around, he realized that the entrance of the secret ground was also composed of 2 stone gates. At this moment, Lin Fan could feel his heart trembling. At the same time, he was filled with a sense of melancholy. Seemed like all of them had just been living in a secret ground the entire time. If not for the fact that he had just witnessed it for his very eyes, Lin Fan would not have believed in something like this even at the death of him. Traveling through the void, Lin Fan checked out his surroundings. There were vast mountains and seas, something that wasn't all that different from the Xuanwang world. However, the spirit chi of the heaven and earth was way thicker than that of the Xuanwang world and the ancient saint world. In fact, even the laws of the heaven and earth were way more complete. There was indeed quite a large difference compared to that secret ground they had lived in up till now. I can't just wander around aimlessly anymore. I've got to hurry and look for a vessel. Lin Fan glanced around left and right. He did not know how long more he had flown before he caught sight of a city. He then headed down and continued searching. Rising Dragon City. Rumors had it that this city was also created from a god dragon. But, with the passage of time and no actual way of verifying the facts, it was nothing more than a rumor. The Rising Dragon City occupied a vast space. Within a gigantic house right now were countless people who were extremely busy. The maids were rushing back and forth from the courtyard and looked extremely flustered. Lin family. The useless family head of the Lin family was about to have his third child. This was a piece of gossip that made its round amongst the countless of residents of the Rising Dragon City, something they discussed all the time before and after meals. The first two children of the family head of the Lin family were all girls. This was something that he could not endure as the head of a family. And now that this third child was about to be born, the Lin family head was extremely concerned about it. Oh, heavens, please bless me, I must definitely have a son this time around. The Lin family head placed his palms together as he paced back and forth the courtyard while praying to the heavens. At the same time, beside him, his two little daughters who were around 3 to 4 years old and looked like porcelain dolls were waiting in anticipation as well. Pishu. A streak of light that no one else could see tore through the void and seeped into the house. Master, Madam has given birth. It's a pair of dragon and phoenix twins. The mother and children are all safe. The voice of the midwife rang out from within the house. Ha ha ha, you shall be rewarded. Rewarded. Lin Haoming burst out laughing wildly. The smile on his face was even more radiant than that of blossoming flowers. Oh, the heavens have blessed us indeed. It's really a son. Not only that, he gave me an extra daughter to go along with it. From now on, my Lin family is going to have a successor. Lin Haoming roared with laughter. At the same time, he was already starting to contemplate in his mind. As long as his son were to reach 16 years old, he would hand down the seat of the family head immediately. With this son to take care of all the troublesome affairs of the family, he could then go travel around the world and sightsee with his wife. Finally, a huge burden has been off from my heart. Chapter 969 Great at Riding the Rocking Horse. Chapter 969, Great at Riding the Rocking Horse. When Lin Fan reopened his eyes, the sight that came before him was a face that totally deserved to be whacked. However, none of that mattered anymore. Thankfully he had managed to make it in time and forcefully reserved this seat of his. Otherwise, he might have to find yet another pregnant lady who was about to give birth. Before he knew it, he was popped out as part of a twin. Divine Celestial Level 3 State. Divine Celestial Level 10 State. Taking a quick glance, Lin Fan had already understood that this man before him and the woman who was lying on her bed were both extremely weak in their cultivation states. This could be even considered as garbage. But, he did not think too much about it as he entered his inner world. Within it was a seal that had his cultivation state entirely locked up. Seemed like he would require some time before he could unseal it. However, none of that mattered to Lin Fan either. There was more than enough time for him. As for the language that the people around him were using, Lin Fan finally understood it as well. Seemed like the language knowledge of the young Mr. Xiaoyao had been imparted into his mind as well. Right now, the only thing that Lin Fan had to do was release the seal so that he could allow his powers to gradually return. Just as Lin Fan was contemplating about these things, he felt as though something was stuffed into his mouth. When he opened his eyes, Mother *CKER. Yours truly doesn't drink milk. But Lin Fan did not wish to say anything anymore at this point. FCK it. Master, please give the child a name. The woman who was breastfeeding said. Madam, you choose the name instead. Lin Haoming said while smiling brightly. The slightly fatigued woman looked at the two children in her arms and said out, for the boy, I just hope that everything will be normal and peaceful. Let's call him Lin Fan then. When Lin Fan, who was in the midst of enduring his torments, heard this name, he nearly yelped out, bloody really Lin Fan for real. N-O-V-E in .c ohm. As for what that little girl was called, he no longer paid any attention. The fact that the Lin family gave birth to a dragon and phoenix twin created quite a bit of a commotion within the Rising Dragon City. However, every outsider knew that the Lin family head was good with nothing at all. But, they could not deny that he was pretty good at creating babies. As for the other family heads of the other families, they could only smile out in disdain. Lin Haoming was nothing but a piece of trash. What use could the children he had possibly be? With the interchanging of the 4 seasons, time passed as every season came and went. 3 years later, Lin Fan had already unlocked 30% of the seal. With that, his strength had already recovered by a huge portion. There wasn't anything much in the Rising Dragon City, with no powerful beings. The most powerful amongst them only had a cultivation state of supreme state. Given the strength that he possessed right now with the 30% he had unlocked as a 3-year-old, he was practically able to sweep across everyone. However, ever since he had been born till now, he had barely spoken much. Most of the time, he would just lie down stupidly, or at other times, he would sit on a little bridge in his courtyard and fall into a daze. In reality, Lin Fan was just trying his best to unlock his seal. It was only when his strength had been fully recovered would he have a sense of security. But because of that, it soon became well known across the rising dragon city that the son of Lin Haoming was a retard. He did not know how to speak. He did not know how to cry. His brains weren't functioning all that well either. He was literally the laughing joke of the entire rising dragon city right now. But even then, Lin Fan couldn't be bothered at all. This Lin family was pretty decent. There was no internal politics, and neither did the servants attempt to bully him at all. This family which he was boarding currently had allowed him to have 2 elder sisters and 1 younger sister. Usually, the 2 elder sisters would come and play with Lin Fan. But why in the world would he bother to mess around with 2 little stinky brats? Therefore, he ignored them most of the time. He just let them play with him as they wished. From the very beginning, Lin Fan had thought that if he were to ignore them, they would quickly lose interest towards him. But who would have thought that the 2 little brats only got more entertained with it and came to play with him daily? Eventually, he just decided to go along with them. After all, it was not as though he had anything big to accomplish by unlocking the seal right now. Following his growth in age, his strength would naturally unlock automatically as well. As for him grinding the seal every day, it was only to hope that it could unlock faster than ever. Fanur, Daddy has made you a rocking horse. Come and ride it. Even though the rumors of the outside world were that his son was one hell of a retard, Lin Haoming refused to believe it. What sh*t did those fellas outside know about? This son of his was just being low profile. He was a profound, mature boy, who did not love to talk, that was all. A rocking horse made of wood was placed before Lin Fan. When he saw this, he did not wish to say anything more. Bloody hell, this guy wanted yours truly to play with a rocking horse. Wasn't this just humiliating yours truly? But eventually, Lin Fan straddled onto the rocking horse and folded his arms together, allowing Lin Haoming to push the rocking horse as he willed. Back and forth, back and forth. My son is really incredible. Look at how he doesn't even have to use his hands to ride a horse. Lin Haoming declared with pride. Lin Fan. 5 years later, the seal within his body had already been unlocked by 70%. However, he still did not create much of a fuss and remained equally low profile. Young master, it's time to have your meal. The maid called out politely. Yes. Lin Fan moved his throat ever so slightly. The reason why Lin Fan took the initiative to start talking was that the rumors outside were simply way too rife. In fact, there was even one time when Lin Fan caught sight of the woman he had employed as his mother crying and sobbing all alone. That had him feeling really uncomfortable. From then on, he started replying with simple phrases. Okay, yes, got it, no need, ... Even though the words that he spoke were small, it still helped to dispel the rumors outside. It wasn't that the young master of the Lin family could not speak, he just did not like talking at all. At the same time, even though Lin Fan had been working hard at releasing his seal in the past few years, he also clearly understood the strength of everyone in the rising dragon city. There were 8 big families in total. Amongst them, the other 7 were pretty darned powerful, and the Lin family was the weakest of them all. But Lin Fan did not pay any heed to these things. As long as no one created trouble for him, he naturally was too lazy to do anything about it. As for that younger sister that was born the same time as him, ever since she could run and talk, she would always come and play with him as well. From there on, each day he woke up, there would be 3 brats who were waiting to disturb him every single moment of the day. They ran about all around the courtyard and brought all the delicious food that they loved with all their hearts for him. At times, Lin Fan would feel sorrowful over this as well. Seemed like it was quite the sin to be too cute and well received. From time to time, Lin Haoming would come over with all sort of toys for him as well. These toys got him somewhat speechless. However, he always tried his best to cooperate each time as well. Seeing a family as such, Lin Fan was truly feeling helpless. Had he known that this would be the case, he would not have found one that was this cute. Perhaps, it might have even been better for him to be born in a family that was filled with grudges and hatred. At the very least, no one would pay attention to a fellow with a weird temperament. With that, yet another 2 years passed. At this time, Lin Haoming brought over many martial arts mystic skills. Lin Fan took a look at these martial arts mystic skills, but did not show much of an interest to them. What sort of trash skills were these? Cultivating them was just a pure waste of time. He would have more fun unlocking his seal even more. With then on, his reputation spread out once more. The young master of the Lin family was a piece of trash who was unable to cultivate. Towards this reputation of his, Lin Fan was totally unconcerned. As a powerful being, if he were so easily swayed by all these baseless rumors, could he still be considered as a powerful being anymore? However, to his astonishment, Lin Haoming had only let out a single look of disappointment one single time, and did not have anything wrong with his expression anymore. From then on, he started showering Lin Fan with even more love and concern as though he owed him something. Regarding this, Lin Fan did not want to think too much about it. But, as for those three girls who were always disturbing him, their gift for cultivation did seem pretty decent. In just a mere few years' time, to think that their cultivation states would have reached the desolate celestial state. Not only that, it seemed as though they could even break through to reach divine celestial cultivation state at any moment. 3 years later, Chapter 970 Relieve Boredom. Chapter 970, Relieve Boredom. This was the 11th year since Lin Fan had arrived here now. Click, a crisp, clean sound clicked out from within Lin Fan's body. In an instant, that seal turned into dust and vanished without a trace. Finally, my strength has returned. Lin Fan was overwhelmed with joy in his heart. N-O-V-E in .C Om. For the past 11 years, he had been working hard day and night, and finally, he had successfully removed the seal. If he were to just wait for it to dissipate naturally, it would have to take a minimum of 20 years at least. That period of time was something that he couldn't afford. At this moment, Lin Fan raised his head and took a look at this foreign world in front of him. Endless mainland, this was a vast world with countless of powerful beings within it. There were many things that Lin Fan did not know about here. Bloody hell, my strength has finally returned. Even though I'm not the strongest in this endless mainland, my strength is still pretty darn mighty. The next step will be to go according to the conclusion of the discussion with the Fire Water Empress and the others. Time to join a sect. The martial arts mystic skills that were cultivated in this world were all different from those he had cultivated back in the Xuanwang world and the ancient saint world. If he wanted to raise his cultivation state quickly, this was the only plan now. Naturally, if he wanted to depend just on himself to become a top-tiered powerful being, that wouldn't be an issue either. However, his speed of cultivation will definitely not be as fast as if he were to join a sect. Rising Dragon City. 3 beautiful figures appeared on the streets. The appearance of these 3 beautiful figures attracted all the attention of the commoners in the surroundings. These were the 3 beauties of the Lin family. Amongst them, the one who was born together with Lin Fan was also slender and elegant, with a clean and pretty face. Let's go buy some presents for little bro. The big sister of the Lin family was already 15 years old right now. As a female of the endless mainland, this was an age where she should be discussing about affairs regarding marriage by now. However, this big sister had a pretty decent gift. Her strength at the divine celestial level 4 state. If she had the affinity to join a sect, she would naturally have a brighter future awaiting her. Alright, say, little bro has always refrained from speaking much after all these years. Do you guys think that little bro really doesn't like talking? The second sister of the Lin family, Lin Feishui asked. Big sister, second sister, it's not that third brother does not like talking. It's just that he loves contemplating about things. The youngest brat of the Lin family, Lin Lanur replied. Oh ho, the ladies of the Lin family are well groomed indeed. Indeed, each one is prettier than the other. Fresh. At this moment, a voice of a hedonistic nature traveled over. On the other side of the street stood a man while waving his hand fan. He was followed by a bunch of dog lackeys that roared out in laughter as they walked along. When the commoners caught sight of the man, all of them were so frightened that they stumbled back a few steps. This was the eldest son of Rising Dragon City's Huang family, Huang Tailong. Although he was only 17 years old, his cultivation state was already at divine celestial level 7 state. In the Rising Dragon City alone, he could be considered as some sort of a prodigy by now. As for the Huang family, they were not too bad themselves either. Amongst the 8 great families, they were one of the top 3. Compared to the Huang family, the Lin family was way too far down. In fact, there could barely even be a comparison between them. Huang Tailong, what are you thinking of doing? The eldest daughter of the Lin family, Lin Hanyu, shielded her two younger sisters behind her while glaring at Huang Tailong warily. From the get-go, this Huang Tailong did not have too good a reputation within the rising dragon city. And, coupled with the fact that his strength was tremendously strong, there were many people who were taken advantage of by him. What am I thinking of doing? I'm definitely not thinking of doing anything. But, seems like I've got to head over to the Lin family to propose for marriage now. Huang Tailong folded the hand fan he was holding and smirked out. His entire attitude reeked of dandyism. Dream on. Lin Lan'er was hiding behind her eldest sister nervously when she popped her head out and said in distaste. Ha ha. Huang Tailong burst out laughing before taking a step forth. However, with that single step, he appeared right before the face of Lin Lan'er as he caressed those tender cheeks of hers. Little brat, do you believe that your young master can just head over to the Lin family to propose marriage and take you in as my wife right now? Let's see if your father dares to utter a single word of nonsense. Oh my, Hanyu, how could you be this violent? Now, it isn't good to get all physical now, is it? Huang Tailong stood firm on his ground as he grabbed onto Lin Hanyu's oncoming hand, then fondled it. This hand is really quite silky smooth, Shameless. Lin Hanyu blared out. Ha ha ha, shameless and whatnot. Even though your Lin family is one of the 8 great families of the rising dragon city, you guys are barely scrapping by. And, I've heard that the young master of your Lin family is nothing but a piece of trash. Seems like the entire Lin family will be done for by this generation. I'd say, the 3 of you might as well follow under your young master here. At least if you come under your young master as disciples of my family, you guys can upgrade from being wild chickens to phoenixes. Huang Tailong mocked out while laughing. The face of Lin Hanyu was red with fury. Boo-hoo. The youngest sister, Lin Lan'er, was so scared that her eyes were brimming with tears as they pitter-pattered down onto the ground. Little sister, don't cry. Lin Hanyu consoled her before glaring at Huang Tailong. Just what do you want? Ha ha, forget it. Boring. Go home and tell that trash of a father you have that your young master will be dropping down personally in a few days' time to visit and propose marriage for the 3 of you to be my wives. Huang Tailong roared out in laughter before turning around to walk off. Big sister. The second sister, Lin Feishui, was feeling afraid now. This was especially after the last sentence that Huang Tailong had said, which raised an intense fear in her heart. Don't be afraid now, he's just dreaming on his own. Let's head back, Lin Hanyu said in anger. Lin family. When the 3 sisters returned bearing such weird expressions on their faces, it seemed as though something big had happened. The servants and housekeepers did not know just what was wrong. Missy, is there anything that's wrong? The old housekeeper of the Lin family had been serving them for many years now, therefore, he naturally asked out of concern. It's nothing. Lin Hanyu shook her head. Oh, my precious daughters, you are all back. When Lin Haoming caught sight of his 3 precious daughters, his face broke into a smile. What's wrong with you guys? Did something happen? When Mrs. Lin took a look at her 3 daughters, it was only natural that she could tell that something was up. Father, mother, when we were on the streets, we were bullied by Huang Tailong. He pinched my face and touched big sister's hand. He even said that he's going to come over to our Lin family in a few days' time to take us in as his wives. Lin Lan'er bawled out in tears. That bastard, this Huang Tailong is getting overboard with his bullying. Lin Haoming hollered in rage. However, he knew that even though the Lin family was still considered as one of the 8 great families, it was the weakest one amongst all of them. Given the current state of the Lin family, he was the only one who could do something. But even then, that didn't amount to much. But, now that his precious daughters had been bullied by that Huang Tailong, there was naturally no way he could possibly endure this at all. Still, if they were to clash with the Huang family, the latter could use it as an excuse to deal with them. By that time, things would truly be out of hand. Where is the Huang family? At this moment, a voice rang out. The Huang family resides at the west of the city, Lin Haoming said by sheer reflex. But suddenly, he snapped to his senses. Son, what are you asking this for? Little brother, big brother. Lin Fan's face was composed, showing neither anger nor happiness. His hands were placed behind his back as he looked at the masses. After staying here for 11 years, I am getting a little bored. Time to go look for the Huang family to relieve my boredom. Lin Fan chuckled out, curling his finger, a streak of light bolted over. An ordinary longsword within the practice hall tore through the void before appearing in his hands. By the time Lin Fan next moved, he had already appeared far in the distance. Little brother, Lin Hanyu was frozen as though this was too much for her to come to terms with. Isn't my son a wasted cripple? Since when had he known how to cultivate? And why is he talking so much today? Not good. Hurry up and go after him. At this moment, Lin Haoming suddenly came to his senses before he slapped at his thighs and chased after Lin Fan. Chapter 971 Because I am happy. Chapter 971, Because I'm happy. That's the young master of the Lin family, right? What's he trying to do? I've got no idea. He's even brought a sword with him. Don't tell me he's going to go slice someone up. This young Master Lin rarely comes out at all. In the past few years, I've only seen him once or twice. All the commoners pointed out and remarked at Lin Fan, not knowing what was about to happen. At this moment within a restaurant, a few men and women were seated within in a circle. There was an elderly man who was calm and composed as he sat there patiently. Elder, the reason why we're out this time around is to recruit disciples with potential. But, it seems as though the only ones of the younger generation out there with potential should belong to the 8 great families, right? A man with a square face remarked to the elderly man with a polite tone. No hurry now, take our time to look and wait out. Among the commoners, there are many from the younger generation with potential as well. All of those children from the 8 great families have been fed pills since they were young. Even though their cultivation states are high compared to those of the same age, their potential may not be all that good. If that's the case, their future path in cultivation will be tough. The elderly man replied calmly. No, vel, b, in c, ohm. Got it. The man nodded his head. The couple of girls by the side were all outstanding beauties. They could not peel away from the delicacies served at all. This time around, they were just out to explore with their elder. As for the mission of selecting junior brothers, they decided to just leave it all to their senior brother and elder. How could they possibly be in the mood to be concerned about such stuff? At this moment, a commotion was breaking out in the lower floor of the restaurant. What's going on? The female disciples got curious as they leaned over the wooden railings to check out the situation below. Just who is that young man? Who is he looking for carrying that sword with him? The commoners who had headed down from above started gossiping excitedly. Isn't that the young master of the Lin family? Rumors have it that he's only a wasted trash. What do you say he's going to do? Who knows? The elderly man took a single glance before he lost his interest. Because Lin Fan had the system, he had contained all the aura within his body and kept it hidden. Therefore, with just a single glance, the elderly man had already dismissed his potential and forgotten all about him. Elder, that young man has pretty decent features. However, his strength doesn't amount to anything much. The square-faced man commented. Yes, the elderly man nodded his head. Unconcerned thereafter, he continued his wait patiently. He believed that he would definitely find some young ones that would suit his likings. Westward in the city, Huang family. After touring the city dandily, Huang Tailong headed home. After that, he met with his father and requested straightaway that he was going to head to the Lin family to propose to marry those 3 brats over. Since this wasn't any big issue, Huang Tailong's father agreed to it naturally. Indeed, the position of the Lin family within the Rising Dragon City was nothing much. Even though they might seem like a great family in the eyes of the commoners, in the eyes of the Huang family, they were merely average. Firstly, they had no one strong as a backing. Secondly, they did not have many resources. All of those resources had been wasted by that wastrel Lin Haoming. If this were 50 years ago, they might still have been quite something. But, if it came down to it, the blame had to be on the head of Lin Haoming. Back when he was young, he had created trouble which resulted in the powerful beings of the Lin family to be crippled. From there on, the Lin family had no one strong to cover and back them up. Outside the doors, Lin Fan stood there and looked at the structures of the building before him. There was gold and jade in all its glorious splendor, a sight way more majestic than the Lin families. What do you want? When the guards at the door caught sight of a young man wielding a sword and standing there, they barked out immediately. As for the commoners nearby, they started whispering in hushed voices. They hadn't expected that the young master of the Lin family would actually head over to the Huang family. Just what in the world was going on right now? When the guards at the door heard the conversation that was being whispered amongst the commoners, they looked at Lin Fan with a weird expression. They hadn't expected for this lad to be the young master of the Lin family. Even though the Lin family was also one of the 8 great families, they did not fear them at all. Lin Fan raised his hand. Suddenly, the long sword in his hands began to scream out as it burst forth with a tremendous sword gleam. Shing! A torrential sword will burst forth from the ground and the entire heaven and earth seemed as though they were going to be torn apart. This sword will was boundless, bringing with it a feeling as though there was nothing that could stand in its way. The elderly man who was seated in the restaurant far away suddenly bolted up as his eyes shone with a look of disbelief. His gaze then focused over into the distance. What a tyrannical sword will! The heart of the elderly man skipped a beat. A sword will of this level bore with it a tremendous intent. It could even be considered as the unrivaled state of the sword Tao. Without any hesitation, that elderly man flashed out as he rushed forth towards the location where the sword will was emanating out from. Elder. The many disciples followed suit. They too had felt the existence of that sword will. At this moment in the Huang family, the masses who were observing had collapsed onto the ground and sat there in a crippled position, with their jaws wide agape and their faces filled with looks of shock. When Lin Haoming, who had rushed over, caught sight of this, he too was completely dumbfounded. Little brother, Lin Hanyu's tongue was stuck in her mouth right now. At this moment, the only thing that could be seen were the residences of the Huang family being sliced cleanly into two by that sword. There was even a gigantic crack on the ground below. And not only that, this crack was only here because Lin Fan held back. If he hadn't, this would have turned an endless abyss that dug right into the ground. That's strange. This sword will is even stronger and more overbearing than back in the ancient saint world. Lin Fan was bewildered in his heart. However, he did not let it affect him at all. What Lin Fan did not know was that due to the completeness of the laws of the heaven and earth in this place, Lin Fan's strength had unconsciously been rising gradually in the past 11 years as well. My son, why you? When Lin Haoming came to the side of Lin Fan, his face was astounded in disbelief. How could his own son be this overbearing? Brazen. All of a sudden, a roar burst forth from the courtyard of the Huang family. A tyrannical aura slammed out from within, exerting pressure on everyone present. Lin Fan had long sensed that there was someone capable within the Huang family, with a cultivation state of supreme full cultivation level. For the Huang family, that was someone that was of an old master level. That sword from earlier on had swept through the entire Huang family and sliced it clean into two. If they were not alarmed by this, there would definitely be something wrong about that. Young son of the Lin family. How dare you destroy my Huang family? You must be tired of living. A sharp flash of light shot out from within. Watch out. The face of Lin Haoming was drained of color. This aura was something that seemed way too scary to him. However, Lin Fan merely chuckled out calmly. Using his fingers, he grabbed out at the void and pulled out the elderly man of the Huang family who was hidden deep in the void. Before he knew it, the old master of the Huang family had found out that Lin Fan had already torn the void apart and he was being dragged out forcefully with violence. He didn't even have a single chance of fighting back at all. Just who in the world are you? The old master of the Huang family was frightened right now. To think that this young master of the Lin family would possess strength as such. Lin Fan replied indifferently. Thereafter, with a composed tone as though he was speaking about something extremely casual, he continued, Huang Tailong, get the hell out. Within the main hall of the Huang family right now, Huang Tailong was frozen like a fool as he laid on the ground in a crippled position. When he saw the deep crack beneath his feet and the voice that was calling out to him, he was practically pale as a sheet. To think that this old man would have made a wrong judgment earlier on. The elderly man who had rushed over from the restaurant remarked as he watched the entire scene unfold in shock. Just what do you want? The voice of the old master of the Huang family was trembling slightly right now. Nothing much. I heard that Huang Tailong wishes to come to the Lin family to propose marriage and steal away the 3 precious flowers of our Lin family forcefully. Because of that, I, Lin Fan, have decided to come and see just what capabilities he has. Lin Fan replied. Then why did you have to wreck my Huang family? The moment the old master of the Huang family heard that it was over this matter, his heart burned with rage. Wasn't this just a small issue? Did he have to go to this extent? Because I'm happy, Lin Fan smiled out calmly. When the old master of the Huang family heard this, he nearly spat out with a mouthful of old blood. Just because he's happy, he decided to wreck my entire Huang family. This. Chapter 972 Literally Soaring Act. Chapter 972, Literally Soaring Act. In some of the other great families at this moment. Chen family. What? You said that trash of a young master of the Lin family just sliced the entire Huang family's house cleanly into two with a single sword. Not only that, he managed to take down the old master of the Huang family with ease. That's right. That young master of the Lin family is no trash. Not only that, his strength is immensely horrifying. How could this be? Dance family. Wu family. When the family heads of the remaining 6 great families heard of this event, all of them were completely flabbergasted as they let out astonished expressions. Huang family's entrance. Huang Tailong was shivering there with his legs wobbling and about to collapse at any moment. His eyes shone with a look of fear. To think that this trash of a young master of the Lin family would actually be strong to the extent that even the old master wasn't his match. If that were the case, what could he, Huang Tailong, do? Divine Celestial Level 7 state. That is some pathetic strength you have there, and yet you want to forcefully marry the girls of our Lin family. Who gave you the guts to do so? Lin Fan's expression was calm. However, every single word that came out of his mouth reverberated in the heart of Huang Tailong. Even though Huang Tailong was quite a bit older than Lin Fan, in the face of a situation as such, he was scared so witless he could barely speak anymore. Horrifying. Way too horrifying. At the same time, he was howling out in his heart. Bloody hell, if you were so strong, why the hell did you have to hide your strength? Bloody piece of trash, to think that you would have put on an act for so many years. Had I known that you were so formidable, your father wouldn't have dared to go mess with your Lin family. Lin family head, please, appease your son. My Huang family shall apologize to you guys now. The Huang family head was just completely begging for mercy right now. As for Lin Haoming, his mouth was opened so widely that one could almost stuff an entire chicken's egg in it right now. He had not thought that this relatively introverted son of his who did not love to cultivate would actually be this domineering. This was just heaven revolting. This pleading tone of Huang Yan right now was exceptionally cathartic for Lin Haoming. For the dozens of years he had been through, today was the most pleasurable of them all. Huang Yan, my son is not the trash like the rumors of the outside world has been spouting. Ever since he was born, he has displayed an exceptional gift for the martial arts. In the past few years, he has always been working hard at cultivating. As for me, Lin Haoming, I am not someone who loves showing off. All I wanted to do was to live a peaceful life in the Rising Dragon City. Therefore, I did not bother to clarify those rumors at all. If not for the fact that your son has gone overboard, I don't reckon that my son would come seeking trouble with your Huang family for no reason at all. After all, our Lin family has always maintained a low profile. Lin Haoming lamented out. Yes, you are right, old bro Lin, it's my son's fault. Please be appeased, old bro Lin. Huang Yan lowered his head in cowardice. If even their old master were no match for him, what sh*t could he do? If the young brat were to get displeased and decided to lay waste to their entire Huang family, who could they complain to? Right now, Lin Haoming's mood was as though he had just gulped down ice-cold water. His heart was cool and happy to the maximum. Oh, son, since your uncle Huang here has put it as such, how about we let it go then? Otherwise, it'll seem as though our Lin family is really petty. Lin Haoming said. Lin Fan took a look at Huang Yan and flicked his wrist. Instantly, a domineering sword will slashed out. Slice. Arg. Huang Tailong screamed out in pain. Both of his palms had been sliced off from his wrist down. Since that's the case, I'll forget it then. But, this hand of yours has got to stay like this for 3 years. Any objections? Lin Fan asked. This fellow was a divine celestial level 7 state being, and could, therefore, regenerate his limbs. However, the area around his wrist had been sealed up by the sword chi. Unless it was a powerful being who surpassed the immemorial ancient full cultivation state came forth to help, no one else would be able to purge it off at all. And no objections. Nothing at all, Huang Yan replied hurriedly. Lin Fan turned around and prepared to leave. At the same time, the 3 beautiful flowers of the Lin family spoke up immediately. Big brother, you're the best. Little brother, haven't you been hiding yourself far too deep? Mrs. Lin was equally stunned right now. Was this even her son? However, it wasn't wrong for Mrs. Lin to question it. This Lin Fan was truly not her son, he was merely borrowing her son's body. However, since Lin Gan had drunk a good whole year of her milk, he could be considered as half her son. And, just as he and his family were about to leave, the elderly man who had been observing him the entire time stood out and blocked his path. Young fella, your strength is pretty decent. Do you wish to join my sect? Qing Yangxi stroked his long white beard as he put on a disposition of a powerful being. Initially, Lin Haoming was a little suspicious towards this elderly man who had blocked their path. But, when he heard the word, sect, his eyes shone with a bright gleam. Senior, may I inquire which sect are you from? Lin Haoming asked immediately. The sects were the strongest existences in the entire endless mainland. There were countless of people who wanted to enter sects, but the sects didn't take a fancy to them at all. But, now that there was a sect that was requesting his son to join on their own accord, how could Lin Haoming not be ecstatic over this? When the masses of the Huang family heard these words of the elderly man, they stopped in their tracks and were drawn in as well. Sect, that was such a high-end existence in this world. If anyone were to be able to join a sect, they would practically be sparrows that would skyrocket to turn into phoenixes. Families and whatnot, by then, none of those would matter in the face of a sect. Heaven and Earth Sect, Qing Yangxi said in a calm tone. At the same time, he was awaiting the stunned expression that everyone would give him. The reputation of the Heaven and Earth Sect was outstanding. They were ranked as one of the top 9 righteous sects in the entire endless mainland. There were countless people who hoped to be able to join the Heaven and Earth Sect. And indeed, the moment Qing Yangxi said out the name of the sect, everyone other than Lin Fan was taken aback immensely. Ah, Heaven and Earth Sect, that's incredible, Lin Haoming exclaimed out in shock. He then tugged at Lin Fan immediately. Son, this is a great sect. If you were to become a disciple of the Heaven and Earth Sect, you will definitely bring glory to our family name. By that time, who else would dare to say that your father is useless? After all, without your father, how could there be such an impressive son such as yourself? When the Huang family head and the old master Huang heard the name, they frowned out. With that, there was no doubt that the Lin family was going to be ranked as the top among the 8 great families by then. And, if this lad were to really make a name out of himself, even the entire Rising Dragon City would not be enough to accommodate the fame of the Lin family by then, with Zhou. Right now, Lin Fan's heart was overwhelmed. What he wanted to do exactly was enter a sect. But, who would have thought that the sect would come knocking on his doorsteps instead? Moreover, if Lin Fan wanted to join a sect, it would have to be a major sect. Even though the name of the Heaven and Earth Sect seemed pretty big right now, Lin Fan did not know too much about their strength in general. If he were to really join the Heaven and Earth Sect and find out that this sect was pretty trashy afterward, then that would be too late for him to even cry out anymore. Old man, fight me 3 days later. If your strength is to my satisfaction, I wouldn't mind joining the Heaven and Earth Sect. Lin Fan said. Brat, you're going overboard. The disciples around Qing Yangxi blew up the moment they heard these words. Haha, alright, 3 days later, this old man will test out this precious jade such as yourself personally. Qing Yangxi roared out in laughter. All the surrounding masses could not be ever more flabbergasted right now. Lin Haoming was especially getting flustered right now. My dear son, why do you have to act as such? That's the Heaven and Earth Sect, Lin Haoming said. Lin Fan chuckled out and placed his hands behind his back before diving out into the void. I hope that you will not disappoint me. Ugh. At this moment, everyone nearly collapsed onto the ground kneeling. Lin Haoming nearly even fainted over as he huffed out heavily. Since when had his lad turned so good at acting bullshit? This wasn't something that Lin Haoming had ever taught him. As for everyone from the Huang family, they were just stunned wide-eyed. Willful, tyrannical and arrogant. But, the 3 beautiful flowers of the Lin family just had their eyes sparkling out with lights of joy. Little brother is so handsome. Big brother is so tyrannical. Opening parenthesis closing parenthesis. ... Yang Qingzi looked over into the distance and remarked, that lad is a little domineering. Elder, let us go and teach that brat a lesson. Honestly, he doesn't know the difference between heaven and earth. Some of the disciples were enraged right now. To think that that brat would dare to be this audacious. The fact that he was able to be fancied by the Heaven and Earth Sect was a fortune that he must have amassed over several lifetimes. There's no need. Qing Yangxi waved it off with his hands in a calm expression. Chapter 973 This is so exasperating. Chapter 973, This is so exasperating. The events at the Huang family spread throughout the entire Rising Dragon City within a single day. The first reaction of the commoners who caught wind of this was just disbelief. The young master of the Lin family sweeping through the entire Huang family. He even severed the palms of the young master of the Huang family. This was one hell of a cold joke, wasn't it? But, when they passed by the Huang family and caught sight of that deep split in between, they were thoroughly convinced. In their opinion, this was something that was ever so outrageous. At the same time, there were rumors spreading outside that the Heaven and Earth Sect wanted to recruit the young master of the Lin family as a disciple. However, the young master of the Lin family insisted on dueling an elder of the Heaven and Earth Sect to check out the capabilities of the sect. The more something like this spread out, the more ridiculous it got. At the end of the day, it turned into something absolutely wild and unbelievable. Some of the family heads. No, even the old masters of the other families were starting to feel restless by now. This was something that was getting way too big. As for those housekeepers in charge of the great families, they started getting busy as well. The fact that the young master of the Lin family was formidable was something that had them taken aback slightly. But, it was the news after it that had them rooted in fear. The Heaven and Earth sect wanted to recruit the young master of the Lin family as their disciple. That was the Heaven and Earth sect. A sect that even people who fought and spilled their guts out might not be able to get a spot in. If this young master of the Lin family were to join the sect, he would definitely skyrocket in status. In his eyes, all of the great families would be nothing but ants. They had to prepare gifts now. They had to prepare men for him now. Lin family. The fact that their third child had suddenly turned so incredible was something that had many people shocked. My son, how did you suddenly turn so incredible? Lin Haoming asked with incredulity. If he hadn't witnessed it with his very eyes, he wouldn't have believed it even at the death of him. The old master of the Huang family was quite something. But, to think that even he would be dragged out by his very own son. How tyrannical was that? I guess I just turned powerful in a moment of carelessness. Lin Fan truly did not know how to respond to that question. At the same time, he was truly speechless towards this Lin Haoming. It was truly quite the tragedy that the Lin family had to be placed in his hands. If not for the fact that the other few families did not really want to go to the extremes with him, and that this Lin Haoming also knew how to back off at times, the Lin family might have already perished a long time ago. Bravo! Lin Haoming bought that explanation. Turning incredible in a moment of carelessness. That was an answer that deserved full marks. Wifey, that womb of yours has done a good job. You are the lucky star of our Lin family. Our benefactor. Lin Haoming hugged his wife and declared. Mrs. Lin was smiling like a flower that was blossoming in spring right now. In her eyes, she had truly done well this time around. Big brother, all these while, I had always thought that you weren't anything much. But, we'll see who else dares to bully me from now on. Lin Lan'er said excitedly. The big sister, Lin Hanyu, and the second sister, Lin Feishui, were both encircling Lin Fan as well. It was as though the both of them wanted to peer through the depths of this little brother of theirs. Soundlessly, he just went through day after day without a single peep. And, there they were worrying that this little brother of theirs might have some problems or something. But, the events of today had them so scared that they could barely speak out anymore. Amazing, way too amazing, was this even still their little brother? I'll go and rest first. Lin Fan excused himself immediately. If he were to continue lingering here, who knew what other questions he would be bombarded with? After Lin Fan's departure, everyone from the Lin family got into discussion immediately. To all of them, everything that had happened today was way too huge. The next day, Master, the old housekeeper ran over hurriedly. He knew that his young master had just shown a remarkable feat the previous day. Even though he was only a servant, he was still extremely excited in his heart as well. When one person attained the Tao, even the chickens and dogs around him would rise to the heavens. With the young master being so powerful right now, it was not as though the Lin family would continue on its downward path, right? They would definitely turn stronger than ever. And as servants, he would have more face when he was heading outside as well. What's up? After feeling ecstatic for the entire night, Lin Haoming was still feeling some remnants of those excited feelings. The family head of the Wu family is here. He has even brought quite some stuff with him, and requests to meet with you. The old housekeeper said. Let him in then. Right now, Lin Haoming could finally straighten his back. His words carried way more volume than usual. He then went towards the main seat in the house and sipped his tea while waiting patiently. Brother Lin, the moment the family head of the Wu family entered, his passion was just like fire. The smile on his face was as bright as flowers in spring, and he seemed exceptionally chummy right now. Ah, so, it's the family head of the Wu family. Come on in and have a seat. Lin Haoming said with a chuckle. However, his bum did not even budge a single inch. Right now, his son was absolutely incredible. Therefore, he definitely had to show some authority along with it. Oh, Brother Lin, my greatest congratulations. The Wu family head congratulated straight away. Lin Haoming smiled in return. Even though it was a composed smile, the expression on his face had fully presented the amount of pride he had in his heart. Brother Lin, actually, I'm here to discuss something with you this time around. I hope that you'll give me your good wishes towards it, Brother Lin. The Wu family head said. Please go ahead and speak your mind. Lin Haoming replied. My family's daughter is 13 years old this year. Honestly, I've been thinking about arranging her marriage and stuff. Now that the son of brother Lin is already 11 years old, I was thinking of putting the two of them together and matchmaking a little. I wonder what you think about that, brother Lin. The Wu family head continued. That's great news. I heard that the daughter of the Wu family is extremely pretty. Within the Rising Dragon City, she could be considered as a beautiful flower as well. Lin Haoming remarked. At the same time, he was beginning to plan out some things on his own. This son of his was definitely going to join the Heaven and Earth sect. But, once he was gone, who knew when he would return next? If he were to help him marry a wife and leave a descendant behind, that would be pretty decent as well. Furthermore, it was important to establish close ties with the other families. The moment the Wu family head heard that the Lin family head had agreed to it, his heart leapt with joy. But just at this moment, the old housekeeper returned. Master, the family head of the dance family has come visiting. Let him in. Oh, brother Lin, I hope you do not get offended over this sudden visit by me. This time around, I'm here to discuss about a marriage proposal of my precious daughter. I hope to become in-laws with you, brother Lin. The dance family head was straight to the point as he spoke up immediately. Lin Haoming was stumped for a moment, and was caught in a spot. Well, brother Dance, brother Wu here is also here to discuss about proposing marriage. Well, Before Lin Haoming was even finished with his words, the old housekeeper came over once more. Master, the Huang family head is here. Please let him in. Right now, Lin Haoming was starting to feel some headache. Just what in the world were these fellas up to? Old bro Lin, I'm really sorry about the events of yesterday. It's honestly my fault for the lack of upbringing. This time around, I'm here to talk about marriage. The old housekeeper who had already run several trips by now returned yet again in a huff. Master, the family head of the Shen family is here. Please let him in. Lin Haoming was truly about to explode right now. Just what in the world were these guys up to? Were they all here to discuss about marriage? Haha, brother Lin. The moment the Shen family head entered, he cast a glance at the other family heads before speaking his mind. Yet another marriage proposal. Thereafter, it didn't take long before all the other family heads had arrived. At this moment, the main hall was just like a marketplace. For some unknown reason, the 7 family heads had started fighting with one another. Hey, old sh*T Huang. That daughter of yours is already 16 years old and you dare to take her out as an offer. Gosh, don't you know of shame? HMPH. So what if she's 16? She's the 4th-ranked beauty in the entire Rising Dragon City. Is your daughter even as pretty as mine? All of you can keep quiet now. Can your daughters even compare with mine? Opening parenthesis closing parenthesis. Lin Haoming stumbled back slightly. The atmosphere in the air right now was so different. How in the world had his son turned so popular all of a sudden? But, if he were to marry all of them over and have each of them give birth to 1 or 2, wouldn't the family line of the Lin family be filled with offspring? That didn't sound half bad at all. But, if Lin Fan found out about this, he would definitely puke out blood and rage. Bloody hell, did Lin Haoming take him for a livestock? Chapter 974 Just what sort of a situation was this? Chapter 974. Just what sort of a situation was this? Right now, the situation at the scene was a little chaotic. The 7 family heads were all arguing with one another, with no single side willing to let up. All of them were describing their daughters as though they were fairies. For a moment, Lin Haoming did not know what to do at all. He could only stand at the sidelines and watch them argue it out. Daddy, what's wrong? When Lin Hanyu heard the sounds of the argument, she came forth to check out what was happening. All of them want to marry their daughters to your younger brother. No, there are just too many of them. I don't know how to choose now. Lin Haoming said, clearly forced in a spot. Lin Hanyu was stunned for a second, then gave off a muffled laugh. Though, she did feel that it was quite a good idea to have her younger brother settle down at a young age. Father, how about you ask all of them to bring their daughters over? We'll then choose from them slowly later on. How about that? Lin Hanyu said. She hadn't expected that things would turn out as such. However, she knew that it was all because her younger brother was way too amazing. From now on forth, his future was immensely bright. And, these 7 great families were naturally here to pander for connections. That's right. Lin Haoming slapped out on his thighs before asserting control over the current situation. Everyone, since all of you say that your daughters are all as beautiful as fairies, how about asking them over for all of us to take a look? How does that sound? The moment Lin Haoming said these words, everyone agreed to it immediately. If one wanted to whack a metal bar onto their bodies, they had to have a body of steel first. One always had to back up their claims with facts. Thus, all of them hurried home respectively to bring their daughters out for a fight. When the masses finally dispersed, Lin Haoming could not help but heave out a sigh of relief. This situation right now was just way too explosive. Bring all of your younger sisters over and have them help take a look as well. Lin Haoming said. Yes. Lin Hanyu nodded her head. To them, this was a big affair right now. They had to find a perfect wife for their younger brother no matter what. The moment Lin Feishui and Lin Lan'er heard that they were choosing a wife for Lin Fan, all of them were filled with curiosity when they arrived at the main hall. To them, this was honestly the biggest thing they could think of. There was only this single male child of the entire Lin family. They naturally were hoping that the Lin family could be filled with descendants. It didn't take long before the 7 family heads came over with their daughters respectively. The moment they walked into the Lin family, it was a majestic sight to behold that attracted everyone's attention. Lin Haoming took a look and nodded his head in approval as well. Not bad. Truly not too bad. The Huang family head was the first to push out his daughter. Brother Lin, please take a look. What do you think? Not bad. Lin Haoming replied instantly. Even though the Huang family head wasn't all that good looking altogether, this daughter of his was honestly not all talk. Anything one wanted, she had it. In terms of figure, she was practically a top-tiered beauty. HMPH. Brother Lin, check out my daughter here. The Shen family head scoffed at the Huang family head in disdain as he pushed his own daughter out. When Lin Haoming took a look, he nodded his head even more. Not bad. Being dragged here by their fathers, all of these girls bore a bit of embarrassment with them. Some of them were filled with exasperation. When they first heard that their fathers wanted to arrange a marriage for them, they had some resistance. But, when they heard that it was the young master of the Lin family, they resisted even further. They did not know why they had to get married to some trash cripple. But, after hearing of the incident with the young master of the Lin family, all of them agreed to it willingly. November LBJNN. Powerful, young, and handsome. This was the perfect Prince Charming in their hearts. And when they heard that there was competition, they placed extra emphasis on dressing themselves up well with makeup to ensure they looked their best. What can you guys amount to? Check out my daughter. All the other family heads felt that if they did not start taking the initiative, the others would definitely gain the upper hand. Lin Haoming nodded his head left and right. He then asked his daughters, what do you guys think? All of them are not bad. Lin Hanyu nodded her head. If these girls were to marry her younger brother, they might be pretty befitting indeed. And, this was especially the case with some of them whose cultivation states and potential were pretty decent as well. All of these big sisters are all really pretty. Lin Lan'er commented. Lin Haoming was quite pleased as well. Since his own daughters had already said so, it meant that they had all passed the test so far. Brother Lin, you call the shots. Whom are you choosing? The Huang family head asked. Well, my daughter's definitely the more outstanding one. All of your daughters are still way too far off when compared to her. Shameless. Can't you speak from the bottom of your heart with your conscience? ... For a moment or so, all of them started arguing once more. When Lin Haoming caught sight of the situation, he felt his headache returning once more. If he were to only choose one of them, this would be pretty unforgivable. There was a high likelihood that a bloodbath would break out instead. Father, how about we choose all of them then? Lin Hanyu said. Lin Haoming did not say anything. Perhaps that was truly the best solution then. This was the only way to not offend anyone, and for everyone to coexist harmoniously in the future. Everyone, all of your precious daughters are excellent. How about all of you joining my Lin family? Lin Haoming said. When the masses heard that, they hesitated for a moment. They then exchanged glances before gritting down on their teeth. Alright, that proposition sounds okay. In the eyes of the 7 family heads, if any of them were to not get into marriage with the Lin family, it would definitely lead to some danger in the future. And, since things had come to this right now, it'd be better to maintain the distribution of power in the entire Rising Dragon City then. Even though the Lin family would be the only one being stronger in the future, at least the other 7 great families would be on equal footing. I'll go and inform Big Brother now. Lin Lan'er said excitedly before rushing over to where Lin Fan stayed. Brother Lin, since this matter is decided as such right now, how about letting us meet with your young master? The family head said. Alright, everyone, please follow me. Lin Haoming agreed. At this moment in an exquisite yard, Lin Fan was standing on the water surface in the middle of a lake right now. Closing his eyes gently, his entire mental state was focused deep within the heaven and earth. When he sensed the laws of the heaven and earth, Lin Fan finally understood how dazzling this entire endless mainland was. Both the powers of the heaven and earth as well as its structure were way more refined and vast compared to even the ancient saint world after it had fused with the infinite worlds. This was a world that was truly incredible. Lin Fan was filled with fighting spirit right now as he was determined to raise his fighting strength in this world as quickly as possible. That heaven and earth sect was pretty decent, that was indeed true. However, Lin Fan did not want to just be a normal disciple. No matter what, he had to start off even higher. That was the only way for him to be valued and get in touch with even more profound martial arts mystic skills. Big brother. Just as Lin Fan was fully immersed in it, Lin Lan'er ran over from the distance. Father has just found a bunch of wives for you. When she first called out to him, Lin Fan did not have much of a reaction. But when heard the words that followed, he froze completely. What in the bloody world were they up to this time around? Wife, yours truly was only 11 years old. Wasn't it way too early for a wife to come into play? And that wasn't even the main point just yet. It was that, a bunch of wives. What the FCK did that mean? Why did he have such a bad feeling about this? And just at this moment, a clutter of noises traveled over from the distance. When Lin Fan focused his gaze over, he saw Lin Haoming headed for his direction while bringing a group of people with him. Following closely behind him was a group of chicks. Those chicks weren't all that old. At best, they were only in their teens. And, the youngest amongst them was probably only 11 or 12 years old. What the bloody hell, all of these were just children. If this was in his previous life, the minimum penalty for this sh*t was 3 years, and the maximum penalty was a death sentence. Chapter 975 Let the duel begin. Chapter 975, Let the duel begin. Oh, my son, hurry and come over, take a look at these wives that your daddy has chosen for you. Even from far away, Lin Haoming had already started to shout out. All of these wives were not too bad. He was undoubtedly quite pleased. As long as his son were to agree, none of those previous issues would be issues anymore. Lin Fan had rarely appeared out in the Rising Dragon City. Therefore, all of these missies of the different families had naturally not seen him before. But, now that they knew that they were about to turn into someone's wife, they naturally wanted to take a look at what their future husband would look like. This single glance over had their gazes linger for a long, long time, as they were unable to pull themselves away from that image. On top of that lake, that elegant demeanor with those long breezing locks, that calm expression that was showing traces of tyranny within that aura. This was something that had them falling for him deeply right from the start. Initially, all of them once had plans for their own futures. If they did not have enough innate potential for martial arts, they basically had no say in the matters governing their marriage. But, even if they had no say, they hoped to be able to marry someone whom they could bear with at least. But, this single gaze had all of them deeply mesmerized by this young master of the Lin family. If they had any misgivings from the start, they had all vanished at this instant. All of them were willing to be the wife of the young master of the Lin family right now. When all the other family heads caught sight of this figure floating above the surface of the lake, their eyes shone with a bright gleam as well. That was the young master of the Lin family, a man who had been reclusive and silent for the past 11 years, even till the point where he was deemed as a worthless piece of trash. But right now, he had shocked the world through a single remarkable feat that reverberated throughout the entire Rising Dragon City. Highs. Lin Fan sighed out in exasperation. This was an affair that had caught him by surprise. As he took one step after another, the surface of the lake was just like flat ground for him. In fact, there weren't even any ripples that were caused by his walking. Even though his aura was kept within him, that disposition was still pretty extraordinary. This wasn't something that the young masters of the other families could compare with. What is all of this about? When Lin Fan landed on the ground, he asked with a calm expression. My son, hurry and come take a look. What do you think of these ladies? Lin Haoming felt that he was really having a tedious role as a father, that he even had to busy himself for the happiness of his son's married life. Lin Fan was extremely exasperated right now as he waved it off with his hands. Right now, my entire heart is focused on cultivation. I have no time to be bothered with affairs as such. He was someone who was poised to be the strongest powerful being that had ever existed. Furthermore, weren't these chicks here way too young? Even if they could bear to do these chicks, yours truly couldn't bear to do it. He would be filled with a feeling of sin. At this moment, all of these chicks began discussing in hushed whispers. Young Master Lin is so handsome. He possesses such a great strength even at such a young age. If I were to be the wife of young Master Lin, I would definitely be filled with a great sense of security in the future. ... Oh, my son, you must not get hasty for cultivation and all. First, you've got to settle down with a family before you continue on the path of cultivation. If you were to have any children in the future, you would be able to focus on cultivating with these in the future. The moment Lin Haoming heard Lin Fan's disagreement, he started to get flustered. Initially when he had Lin Fan, Lin Haoming was already thinking about how to groom him such that he could have him take over the role as the family head. But right now, this son of his was definitely going to be selected to enter a sect. If that were the case, the seat of the family head could only be passed down to the next generation then. Once he handed over the seat of the family head, Lin Haoming could finally live a life of ease. That's right, that's right. Young Master Lin, one must not get hasty with the path of cultivation. First comes the family, then comes the career. The wedding ceremony will be swift and will not take up too much time. Some of the other family heads started chiming in right now. As for those missies of the different families, they took some initiative amidst their shyness to cast some flirtatious glances over at Lin Fan as well. Lin Fan was truly afraid of these guys right now. Settle down their A*****s. All of these chicks might not even be mature in their minds just yet. If he were to focus on cultivating later on, who knew when he would end up being a cuckold because of them in the future? By then, it was definite that his cultivation state would only rise with time. As for the blemish of being a cuckold, one could never ever wash off that shame. There's no need to speak any further about this matter. At the same time, I fully understand your intentions for visiting this time around. Today, I'll make things clear right here. As long as you guys don't cause any trouble for the Lin family in the future, I, Lin Fan, will not cause trouble for you guys either. And, even if you guys meet with any troubles in the Rising Dragon City or get bullied, I can help you guys to stand up for justice as well. However, there is no need to discuss about this matter regarding pandering for kinship. Lin Fan said. When the masses saw how curtly Lin Fan had rejected everything, they did not know what to do for a moment or so. All of them then cast their sights over at Lin Haoming, hoping that he could help them speak out with a word of goodwill or more. At this moment, Lin Haoming was equally helpless. This son of his did not like to speak much from the very beginning. He didn't have much of a choice towards this as well. Then, do you guys want to push this matter back first? Lin Haoming looked at the masses. Alright, everyone, leave first. I'll be dueling with Qing Yangxi tomorrow. Don't come and disturb me. Lin Fan turned his back around and prepared to leave with his hands behind his back. The various family heads revealed looks of disappointment in their gazes. In their eyes, the safest guarantee they could get was if they were to be able to build some relationship here. Even though young Master Lin had promised right now that he would protect them, they still felt a little unsettled in their hearts. It was as though empty words meant nothing. But, Lin Haoming knew that there was no turning back for this matter. Therefore, he continued, alright, please head back first, everyone. Just let this matter rest first. My son has already said that he will look over the entire Rising Dragon City. As for our Lin family, we do not like to fight and cause conflicts either. All of you can rest assured. He felt a little regretful towards this. He naturally understood the reason why the other 7 great families would come proposing for marriage. But of course, his main intention was still to get his son some wives. But now that his son was the one rejecting the idea, what else could he do? If the Lin family were one that loved to fight out, Lin Haoming wouldn't have just lived life idly by, wasting his life every day on pleasures instead of plotting against the other families during all these years. When the various family heads looked at Lin Haoming, they could only cup their fists and bid farewell eventually. However, they left the presents they brought over. No matter what, those would do as welcome gifts then. Within the house, after Lin Fan knew that those fellas had left, he heaved out a sigh of relief as well. That was so damned bloody horrifying. He was going to duel with that Qing Yangxi guy tomorrow. Lin Fan could already tell that the cultivation state of that Qing Yangxi was a true immortal state lower level. There was yet another state above the immemorial ancient full cultivation state, and that state was the true immortal state. The might of a true immortal was something that had Lin Fan pretty curious about it. At the same time, he wanted to try out for himself just what the strength of a powerful being at that state would be like. November LBJNN. Within the ancient saint world, those utmost powerful beings had already been through countless of eras. And yet, none of them had been able to break through from the immemorial ancient state. The reason for that should be that the laws of the heaven and earth were incomplete in that world. And because of that, the highest possible state they could attain there was the immemorial ancient state. Ever since he had come forth from that jail there, the laws of the heaven and earth here were more complete. If Lin Fan wanted to reach a new cultivation state, that would naturally be of no issue as well. Right now, Lin Fan had just unlocked his seal and he had to focus his energy on healing up his body so that he could push his essence, spirit and vitality to their peak. He had to face the duel tomorrow with the best condition he could muster. Next day, the entire Rising Dragon City was bustling with excitement. Even if it were those ordinary commoners, all of them knew that the young master of the Lin family was going to face off with some old big shot from a sect. And, the location for it was at the biggest sparring arena of the Rising Dragon City. Qing Yangtze had arrived bright and early to lay down a protective barrier. Otherwise, given their strength, even if only a little bit were to seep out, it could probably shock the residents of the Rising Dragon City to death from its impact. Chapter 976 That's not enough from you. Chapter 976. That's not enough from you. The restaurants surrounding the sparring arena were suffering from overcrowding right now. The A-class seats that are near the wooden railings. There is only a single seat left. Who wants it? The attendant of the restaurant shouted out. Me, I want it. None of you snatch it from me. I want it. Bloody hell, do you guys have more money than me to snatch it from me? Attendant, give it to me. This time around, the duel was unprecedentedly grand. As such, all the surrounding restaurants were all filled to the max. This was especially the case for the seats on the top floors of the restaurants. These were seats that one could barely purchase even with all the riches. On the streets, many vagrant martial artists were squeezing through the crowd with their lives as well. Hurry up and find a good spot. Otherwise, we'll miss out on watching it. The duel this time around is simply way too grand. The young master of the Lin family fighting with an old big shot of a sect. This is a rare sight that hardly happens even in 100 years. That's right, the rumors had it that the young master of the Lin family was some trash cripple. But, who knows when he had turned so powerful. Hugh, all of you have been fooled. The young master of the Lin family is an unrivaled talent whose innate potential is tremendous. It's only because he was way too low profile that he was mistaken by others. Oh, so that's the case. Those people who were spreading these false rumors are really too detestable. ... On the sparring arena, Qing Yangtze stood there with his eyes gently shut. For someone from this small Rising Dragon City to challenge him to a duel, this was something that he could have rejected completely. But, the young lad that had requested for the duel had him feeling extremely curious about it. He did want to see just what the young lad could do. It was easy to seek out people with fortitude. But, to seek out the young ones with an unrivaled potential. That was something extremely difficult. As the elder who was in charge of recruiting disciples for the sect, there was a need to inject only the purest of blood into the sect. If he were able to find a disciple of this sort here in the Rising Dragon City, it would be easy for him to account for matters after heading back into the sect. After all, even 10,000 ordinary disciples could not amount to a single genius disciple. On the viewing platform, why would Elder agree to duel with that brat? One of the junior brothers said out in a huff. "No, in C ohm. I feel that the young man is pretty decent. If he were to join our sect with us, I think that would be awesome." A female disciple chuckled out. As for that square-faced disciple, he spoke up as well, that young man has an extraordinary strength. Just look at that sword will that he displayed that day. Even within our sect, there are only a few who can match up to something like that. I'm sure Elder is just someone who knows how to appreciate talents. Since that young man wishes to have a duel with the Elder, the reason why the Elder agreed to it must naturally be to sniff out the foundations of this young man. But senior brother, isn't that brat a little too brazen? Our Heaven and Earth sect is one of the 9 great righteous sects. Do you think he has the right to choose us? A disciple said out in indignance. Hue, have you forgotten about Lai Qingtian? The moment that disciple heard that name, his face changed slightly. He then rebutted, but, how could that be? That Lai Qingtian is an unrivaled prodigy. Naturally, that guy has the right to choose between the sects. Even though you may be right, now is the time to check out whether this young man has the same capabilities as that Lai Qingtian. That person is here. At this moment, Lin Fan walked over carefreely. Behind him, Lin Haoming had brought along servants with crash cymbals and drums to hype up the place and boost the former's morale. Seeing this situation, Lin Fan was completely helpless. He honestly could not help but feel that every person within this Lin family was more of a clown than the other. Oh, son, you must give it your best later on, alright. I'd say, look at that old man. He looks pretty old, therefore, his stamina will definitely not be able to keep up with yours. Let's just play for time and waste his energy, alright. Lin Haoming remarked. Lin Fan shook his head. By the time they were at this cultivation state, age played no role at all. For someone of Yang Qingzi's cultivation state, if he wanted to turn young once more, it was something he could do with just a single thought. Big brother, good luck. Lin Lan'er cheered him on. Little brother, if you really cannot hold out later on, don't force yourself. Lin Hanyu said. Daughter, how could you imply that your younger brother can't beat that old man? Lin Haoming said. I just don't want my little brother to get hurt. Lin Hanyu said sadly. By the time Lin Fan arrived at the scene, the atmosphere surrounding him had already reached its climax. Everyone from the 7 great families was here to spectate. This was a duel that was far from ordinary, and not to be underestimated. Within the Huang family, when Huang Tailong caught sight of that figure, his face revealed traces of fear. But for the most part, it was plain exasperation. Regarding things like revenge and whatnot, Huang Tailong did not dare to think about it anymore. He could only chant silently in his heart. Lin Fan, you must definitely lose. Lad, this old man here will not go any further than necessary. You do not have to worry. Qing Yangxi said in a casual manner. Oh, Lin Fan nodded his head, although he was pretty unbothered by it. When Qing Yangxi pointed out with his finger, the entire space around him got sealed up instantly. This was to prevent their powers from being leaked out and causing innocents to be injured. We can start now, strike at me then, Qing Yangxi said. But at this moment, Lin Fan was still contemplating. For the duel this time around, he should hold back on some of his moves. The main point was to test out the strength of a true immortal state being. As for the 9-5 legendary brick, twisting heaven and earth, and whatnot, there was no need to deploy them at all. This wasn't a life and death duel. It would be better for him to keep some tricks up his sleeves. Xing. At this moment, Lin Fan's aura started to change. That initially stable aura of his started to expand out. When Qing Yangxi felt this aura, his eyes shone with a weird expression as well. He was observing Lin Fan with extreme scrutiny. Every single change of this lad was being evaluated by him right now. What a strong aura. The square-faced disciple let out a look of shock. All of a sudden, something changed at the arena. In a flash, Lin Fan sent a punch flying out towards Yang Qingzi. The momentum of his punch was explosive as it ripped through the entire void. Qing Yangxi stood on the ground as his robes fluttered. He frowned as his heart skipped a beat. This strength was too formidable. Wasn't this lad a sword user? To think that even his melee fighting strength would be this strong as well. Composed and calm, Qing Yangxi stretched out his palm and received Lin Fan's fist. This fist of yours. Just as Qing Yangxi wanted to give some opinion about that fist, his face changed slightly all of a sudden. He could sense that there was a power contained within the fist that seemed like a wild beast that was awakening. A boundless power was bursting forth from the depths of that fist. Old man, you had better show some true skills. Otherwise, you're going to have to lie down on the ground. Lin Fan roared out with an unrivaled fighting prowess as the source of power gushed out. This was a punch that possessed momentum on 2 different layers. And, this second layer of momentum was none other than the existence of the source of power. Even though Lin Fan's cultivation state was at immemorial ancient state upper level, he could take down powerful beings of immemorial ancient full cultivation state. And, while this Qing Yangxi was someone of true immortal state lower level, Lin Fan had the confidence of going head on against him. Bam! Qing Yangxi stumbled back for a few steps. Every single step he retraced caused the golden tiles on the ground to explode out wildly. By the time he was at his 3rd step, Qing Yangxi's body convulsed momentarily. An aura that was akin to that of a sharp blade burst forth from the back of his body before slamming out at the barrier. It was only then that Lin Fan's powers were fully dissipated. Good lad, just that move of yours is enough reason to suffice bringing you into the heaven and earth sect as a disciple. Qing Yangxi could not help but get serious at this moment. The amount of surprises brought forth to him by this lad was way too much. But old man, if you want to pull me into the sect with just this strength that you're displaying right now, that is still too far from enough. Lin Fan chuckled out. As for the disciples on the viewing platform, all of them were astounded. What, that brat was able to push our elder back by 3 steps. The masses were watching with open jaws as they felt the incredulity of this situation. Bravo, big brother, Lin Lan'er cheered out with her cheeks flushed red. Chapter 977 You have already lost. Chapter 977, You have already lost. Qing Yangxi could not help but get serious at this moment. This lad had some capabilities indeed. The powers that burst forth from that punch earlier on were far from normal. If not for the fact that his reaction speed was fast, he might truly have been struck by the Tao of that lad. Outsiders often enjoyed the surface of the tricks while professionals understood the intricacies of it. The commoners naturally could not tell just how powerful that single strike was. That single punch had even caused the void to distort. That was something that the commoners viewed as special effects. But, the vagrant martial artists were astounded beyond anything else. They knew that if they had been on the receiving end of it, they definitely wouldn't have been able to block it at all. The amount of power that emanated out was simply way too formidable. Again, Qing Yangxi's face was serious right now as his robes fluttered out with an aura that seemed like banners bursting forth from within. The duel this time around was one of pure brute power, there were no treasures involved. Alright, I'll just have to see what sort of capabilities true immortal state lower level possesses. Lin Fan roared out, leaping up with a single foot, his entire body started shapeshifting. But, by the time one took another look, there was merely an afterimage left in his original position. Lin Fan's speed had surpassed everything. In the blink of an eye, he had already appeared beside Qing Yangxi. This was a speed that had the spectators watching in astonishment. This was especially the case for the Heaven and Earth sect disciples. All of them were dumbfounded. To think that they could not even follow Lin Fan's figure. So fast. Qing Yangxi's lips curled into a cold smile. At true immortal state, one's life was comparable to that of the heavens. This was the zenith of cultivation states. Even if it were only the lower level, it wasn't something that immemorial ancient state beings could hope to face against. Lin Fan did not hesitate as the powers within his body rumbled out, and a dragon of power swam around his body. When he spread out both his palms with his 10 fingers, the void was pushed back by the pressure as everything slammed out towards Qing Yangxi. Interesting, Qing Yangxi chuckled out and swept at his robes. It seemed as though those robes had a life of their own as they spiraled out and contained all 10 of Lin Fan's fingers and wrapped them up. Shred. The duel this time around was a true and actual duel. Lin Fan did not resort to any of those underhanded moves he had in his kitty. If he were to truly deploy them, this Qing Yangxi here would have fallen in defeat with the first chance he had earlier on. But right now, Lin Fan wanted to use a duel as such to check out for himself just how far apart he was from true immortals. At this moment, Lin Fan's 10 fingers were just like sharp blades that could slice through anything as they swiveled up and cut at time and space itself. Those heaven-encompassing robes of Feng Qingzi were shredded up by Lin Fan. Old man, show some true skills. Otherwise, you're really going to lose. Lin Fan's body flashed out as his battle intent skyrocketed. A battle intent spirit that was manifested from his battle intent appeared and burst forth from his body. So strong, the disciples of the Heaven and Earth sect had not expected that this young man would be able to fight with their elder to this extent. This was something that had them taken aback completely. Good lad, to think that you would have the cultivation state of an immemorial ancient state upper level even at this young age. Even if you were in the Heaven and Earth sect, you would be one of the top few prodigies. However, if you want to rattle a true immortal state being with that amount of power, that is still far from enough. Today, this old man is going to teach you a lesson. The moment he said out those words, the aura of Qing Yangxi took on a stark change. Within the unknowns, he was barely perceptible. It was as though there was a law with the width of a thumb wrapping around the entire body of Qing Yangxi. This was the law of true immortals. When Lin Fan caught sight of this, he could also fully sense the aura that was being emanated out by this law of the true immortals. Formidable. This was repression in terms of their very foundational basis. But to Lin Fan, none of this mattered. Herg, Lin Fan roared out as his body jerked. Those initially calm eyes of his shone with a sharp glint as the powers within his body started to boil with life. Even if it was a mere cell, it was expanding out rapidly right now, activating every single last bit of power within his body to its fullest extent. When Qing Yangxi felt this aura that was emanated out from Lin Fan, he felt his heart skip a beat once more. This was a power that had far surpassed the threshold of an immemorial ancient state upper-level being. Bam, bam, that seemingly imperceptible law of true immortals burst forth from him before turning into a boundless amount of power. Qing Yangxi then raised his hand and closed his 5 fingers into a fist. This fist alone was similar to a punch of the heaven and earth. Even a small little wave possessed all the laws of the heaven and earth. This was a state that was only comprehensible to true immortal state beings. Lad, the biggest difference between immemorial ancient state and a true immortal state is whether or not one has the ability to fuse one's mystic skills of the martial arts into the laws of the heaven and earth, and turn them into mystic skills of the Tao. Even if it's a normal and unassuming punch, it will possess an incredible amount of might. This punch is where the essence of the true immortal state really lies. True immortal punch. Qing Yangxi's body shivered slightly. It was as though there was an elderly man with a white beard standing at the top of that fist of his. This elderly man, on the other hand, was just like a master of the heaven and earth who was educating all the living beings on how they should sense out and feel for the heaven and earth. Before the punch had even arrived, that boundless power had already enveloped Lin Fan within it entirely. Under this power of a true immortal, every single fiber of his cultivation state seemed as though it was being repressed down. Even though there was already a barrier set up at the vicinity, this aura was still managing to seep out ever so slightly. The leaking aura repressed the masses and had them feeling as though they wanted to prostrate onto the ground into submission in the face of it. So, this is the might of the true immortal state. At this moment, Lin Fan came to a big realization and revealed an eureka expression. He then chuckled out, to comprehend the mystic skills of the martial arts into mystic skills of the Tao. So, it's just like that. Clang. All of a sudden, Lin Fan roared out into laughter. That body of his was straight like a sword right now as he stood tall within the world at this moment. A series of heaven-piercing sword wills bolted forth from the ground, bent on shattering the entire firmaments. At this moment, the sword will that was erupting forth from Lin Fan was just like the emperor of all sword wills. A formless and edged sword will streaked through the void and clashed with that single punch's intent. This unparalleled sharp sword will sliced through everything and destroyed everything in its path. When it made contact with that true immortal punch's intent, it sent the latter flying away instantly. What? Qing Yangxi's face tensed up as he let out a look of astonishment. But by now, it was all too late. Lin Fan moved his body and disappeared from where he was instantly. Using two fingers placed together as a sword, the next time he appeared, he was right before the face of Qing Yangxi. When Lin Fan drew across with his fingers, it had already reached the forehead of Qing Yangxi. You have already lost. Lin Fan's voice was indifferent as though he was speaking of something extremely normal. On the opposite side, Qing Yangxi was just totally flabbergasted as though he could not believe everything before his eyes. Qing Yangxi knew that if this lad were to use a single thought, his entire brains would be minced into sludge with the sword will of the latter. You've yet to enter a true immortal state. How could you have your mystic skills turned into Tao? Qing Yangxi's voice was hoarse and croaky right now as though he had just seen a ghost. What? Has no one in this world ever done so? Lin Fan asked. It's not that. There were. And what were they called? Lin Fan questioned once more. Supreme Paragons. Lin Fan took back his fingers and leapt down from the sparring arena. He then placed his hands behind his back and walked into the distance. Since that's the case, what's there to be surprised about? If they are Supreme Paragons, why can't I be a Supreme Paragon as well? Anyways, your strength is pretty decent. I guess I could make do with the Heaven and Earth sect. We'll head over tomorrow. By the time Qing Yangxi snapped back to his senses, Lin Fan had long left the place under the escort of his Lin family. Holy FCK. Qing Yangxi could feel his heart thumping furiously. He hadn't expected that he would lose, or that the lad would be this arrogant. As for the disciples of the Heaven and Earth sect, all of them were just watching with jaws wide open right now. To think that the elder would have actually lost. As for Qing Yangxi, he could never ever figure out for the life of him how that final move of the other party's fingers was performed. How did he actually do it? How could it possibly disintegrate his very own true immortal punch? Chapter 978 The journey is about to begin. Chapter 978. The journey is about to begin. Elder. He. The disciples of the Heaven and Earth sect were all stunned silly right now. Just what in the world was this situation? Their elder was a true immortal state powerful being. How could he lose to a single young man? Qing Yangxi was just standing there. Even though his expression was calm, he felt as though he had lost all hope in life. That old face of his stung a little as though he had just been slapped thoroughly left and right. To think that given his strength as a true immortal state lower level being, he would actually be defeated by some lad of immemorial ancient state upper level. If word of this were to get out, how much face would he lose because of it? And, that was even before considering the fact that this place here was swarmed with people right now. His defeat had been witnessed by countless of people. All of the spectating commoners yelped out in shock. That old big shot of the sect has actually lost to the young master of the Lin family. This is way too explosive of an affair. Just what sort of strength does that young master of the Lin family possess? How could he possibly be this strong? That move from earlier on was way too tyrannical. Using his hands as a sword, he just slammed it down straight on the head of that old big shot of the sect. By the looks of it, this is going to be the uprising of the Lin family right now. With a strength of that level, who in the world would still dare to go against the Lin family in the future? I heard that the family heads of the other 7 great families had gone to the Lin family yesterday to propose for marriage. Even though I don't know what the general outcome of that was, it is pretty evident that those 7 family heads are just trying to pull some connections with the Lin family. I heard that all of them were rejected by the young master of the Lin family. After all, this young master Lin is someone who is going to be the disciple of a major sect. By that time, the girls he comes into contact with would definitely be those of a breathtaking and ravishing caliber. They are not people that these daughters of the 7 great families could hope to compete against. Elder, Qing Yangtze waved it off with his hand. Although this was a little embarrassing, a loss was a loss. There was nothing more to be said of it. Instead, he actually felt a small sense of excitement. As the elder in charge of recruitment for the sect, Qing Yangtze had recruited countless disciples in the past dozens of years. Back in the past, Qing Yangtze had managed to dig out a Lai Qingtian. However, that man was someone who was extremely pragmatic. He used the Heaven and Earth sect as a stepping board and entered the number 1 sect of the 9 great righteous sects back then, the Panic sect. That had caused the Heaven and Earth sect to be the butt of all sorts of jokes. And now that he had managed to uncover a disciple as such in the Rising Dragon City, Qing Yangtze knew that this lad was in no way weaker than Lai Qingtian. In fact, he might even be a step above the latter. This young lad is a supreme paragon, and surpasses even that Lai Qingtian. The fact that he's able to be discovered by me must be due to good fortune that I've accumulated over several lifetimes. Qing Yangtze remarked in excitement. When the surrounding disciples heard how high their elder's evaluation of this young man was, all of them were stunned. Stronger than Lai Qingtian, what sort of an idea was that? That was something that they did not even dare to imagine any further. Lin family. Right now, Lin Fan was being surrounded by the masses. My son, that was simply way too incredible. Even I have difficulty believing that I could give birth to such an incredibly amazing son. Hurry up and tell your father. Are you truly my son? Lin Haoming was so ecstatic he was dancing with his hands up in the air. At this moment, he felt as though he could practically fly up into the heavens. Right now, Lin Fan was really exasperated. He truly wanted to reply with a, "Yes, you're right. I'm not your son." However, he decided to shrug off that idea. Even if he said that, no one would believe him. As for this fella, he was quite the decent man to be honest. Well, that would suffice to give him the rights to relish in this self-pride for now. Tomorrow, I'll be leaving the Lin family. You guys, no matter what, Lin Fan had lived here for a full 11 years. Now that he was about to leave so suddenly, he naturally had to console all of them. But before Lin Fan was even done with his sentence, Lin Haoming spoke up. "Oh, my son, you are like the mythical dragons of the skies. The Rising Dragon City isn't enough to accommodate someone like you. Once you enter the sect, you must definitely work hard to get a good 17 or 18 beautiful fairies. Then, you can come and bring us glory, filling up our halls with future descendants. Don't worry now, with me around, the Lin family will definitely be able to pull through this period of time. Just remember to visit us often in the future," Lin Haoming said in exhilaration. Alright, there was truly nothing that Lin Fan had to say anymore. "Big brother, Lenur can't bear to see you go." Lenur ran into Lin Fan's embrace and hugged him while saying sadly. Lin Fan fondled her head and replied, "I'll return to visit you guys often." "Little brother, good luck." Lin Hanyu and Lin Feishui cheered their younger brother on. Mrs. Lin was extremely reluctant as well. However, she knew that the fact that the Lin family could produce such a prodigy was the fortune of the entire Lin family. If she were to insist for him to stay in this tiny little Rising Dragon City, she would definitely be scolded to death by the ghosts of the ancestors of the family. "Yes, you guys, don't worry. I'll definitely return," Lin Fan replied. This duel of Lin Fan suppressing the old big shot of the sect had the 7 family heads totally shocked silly. Initially, they had already thought that the young master of the Lin family was incredible enough. But, it was only now that they realized he wasn't incredible at all. He was just heaven revolting. That was an old big shot of a sect, and an elder to boot. If the young master Lin was already this strong right now, how would things be like after he entered a sect? This was a deep remorse they were feeling right now. Had they known that this would be the case, they would have insisted on the young Master Lin taking in their daughters even if they had to kneel down for it. Gosh, even if it were just a wife in name, that would do. But, it was a pity. It was far too late for all of this by now. To think that such a great affinity would have slipped off their hands just like that. This was a bucket full of regrets they had to carry now. The next day, the Lin family was decorated with lanterns and colored banners as though there was some joyous occasion going on. The band at the doorsteps was playing music as well. From top to bottom, the entire Lin family, from their family head down to the servants, heck, even the family pets, were brought into the sending-off ceremony. Countless of commoners gathered over. They were here to take a look at the young Master Lin. This was the most remarkable prodigy that was ever produced in the history of the Rising Dragon City. Standing in the middle of the courtyard, Lin Fan raised his head and looked at the void. At this moment, there was a battle arc floating up in the void silently. Even though this battle arc wasn't really huge or anything, it was extremely awe-inspiring. A single look was enough to tell that it was no normal object. Qing Yangxi stood on the battle arc and looked down at Lin Fan below with an appreciative expression. This was a supreme paragon that he had discovered, and could be considered as the most glorious moment in the entirety of his career. As long as there were no accidents, it was definite that this lad would one day become a supreme powerful being who could shake the entire world under his feet. As for him, Qing Yangxi, he would then be known in the texts of history as the one who had uncovered this supreme powerful being. The moment he thought of that, Qing Yangxi felt some tingles of excitement. Lin Fan looked around at the masses before nodding his head eventually, and his body started floating towards the sky. "Young master, remember to come back and visit us." The servants shouted out. "Big brother, remember to think of me. Little brother, have a safe trip. My son, remember to work hard and bring back 17 to 18 wives for our family." The surrounding commoners erupted out in cheers as well. When he arrived at the battle arc, Lin Fan nodded his head towards Qing Yangxi and the others. He then looked down below and surveyed the entire Rising Dragon City beneath his feet. Qing Yangxi came to his side and said, "Don't worry. I've already implanted the imprint of the Heaven and Earth sect into this part of the world here. No matter which sect it is, they will know that this is part of the Heaven and Earth sect's territory. There will be nothing that will happen to this place. And, if anything does happen to this place," Lin Fan asked calmly, "then they shall have to withstand the endless fury and wrath of the entire Heaven and Earth sect. The Heaven and Earth sect places an unparalleled importance to the families of our disciples. We will definitely not allow them to suffer any harm at all." Qing Yangxi replied. "All right, let us leave then. Time to see just what this Heaven and Earth sect is like." Lin Fan peered out into that vast and endless world before him. Right now, this was the true beginning of his journey. Chapter 979. Chapter 979, I must definitely bring him to great heights. Back in the Xuanwang world, there was the existence of battle arcs as well. However, the battle arcs here were far different from those back in there. This difference was in terms of their intrinsic natures, and wasn't something that could be compared. Rivers and mountains flashed by in an instant. With each blink, they seemed to be passing by another world. Lin Fan stood there silently without speaking or moving. He was just experiencing the vastness of the world. Given his strength, if this were the Xuanwang world or the ancient saint world, he could cover the entire world with just a single thought. But, this endless mainland was so indefinitely huge that he couldn't even reach the boundaries of it. The laws of the world here were way more refined and complete than the worlds Lin Fan had ever been in. For any powerful being, this was a place like paradise. At this moment, there were some changes happening in the scenery up ahead. A series of mountain peaks that were so tall they pierced the sky itself stood tall between the heaven and earth. One after another, these mountain peaks that were like coiling dragons that extended right into the firmaments. White clouds shrouded the peaks, creating a scenery that was extremely picturesque. There were cranes soaring all around the place, with countless disciples flying all around amidst streaks of light. Even though they had yet to arrive at the sect, there was already a desolate aura that was enveloping Lin Fan within. "We're already here. This is the Heaven and Earth sect." Qing Yangxi stood beside Lin Fan and introduced. Lin Fan nodded his head. The disposition of this Heaven and Earth sect was truly extraordinary and far from normal. There was probably no single sect within the entire Xuanwang world and the ancient saint world that could compare with this. The Heaven and Earth sect has a history of hundreds of thousands of years. Using the Heaven and Earth as a basis, we have cultivated countless of skills. Every single disciple of the Heaven and Earth sect must comprehend the true essence of Heaven and Earth. That is the only way for them to attain a higher state of being. Qing Yangzi explained. Lin Fan listened intently, not letting any bit of information slip by him. The moment they entered the Heaven and Earth sect, he could sense some reverberations through the void. Even though it was only a very faint feedback, it still could not escape Lin Fan's senses. That must be from the barriers of the Heaven and Earth sect. The descent of the battle arc did not attract anyone's attention. You wait here for a little while. I'll enter the sect and inform the Grand Master about this, Qing Yangzi said before letting his disciples accompany Lin Fan. Lin Fan stood there and observed the sect's happenings. People passed by here and there. The cultivation states of these disciples were not weak. November LBJNN. Senior brother Li Qing, did you guys manage to find any good seeds in your trip to look for disciples this time around? At this moment, a man in a green shirt passed by and chuckled while asking. Yes, this one over here. That square-faced disciple, Li Qing, smiled and replied. Oh, that disciple checked out Lin Fan up and down. He could not tell what was different about this guy. This over here is junior brother Lin Fan. He possesses an exceptional potential. Li Qing naturally knew of how amazing Lin Fan was. However, he knew that he could not tell others of the news of their elder's defeat. After all, if word of that were to get out, it would definitely result in loss of face for elder Qing Yangzi. Exceptional potential. The disciple sized Lin Fan up and down once more. He truly could not tell just what was so different about this fella. He then chuckled out and disregarded the latter entirely. At this moment in the Grand Master's area, Qing Yangzi reported it as it was, telling everything that he had seen and gone through in the Rising Dragon City. At the same time, his focus was on this new disciple, Lin Fan. Grand Master, this disciple possesses an extraordinary strength. He is clearly not of true immortal state, yet he is able to bring the Tao into his spirit. He is definitely a paragon amongst prodigies, Qing Yangzi said. Oh, the moment the Grand Master heard this, he expressed an astonished look. For someone to be able to bring the Tao into their spirit without even reaching a true immortal state, that was truly a paragon. However, Qing Yangzi still concealed some facts from the Grand Master. After all, it'd be better to not spread the news of his defeat. If something like that were to spread out, it would be quite the embarrassment for this old face of his. Grand Master, I feel that we can value and groom this disciple with importance, Qing Yangzi recommended. In order to sustain the strength of the sect, they had to produce top-class geniuses. At the same time, they could be considered as remnants of the Grand Master. As for these remnants, there were only 10 of them. This was a predetermined number. To think that Qing Yangzi would have returned as well. At this moment, a trail of blaze streaked through the void and incinerated everything around into nothingness. When Qing Yangzi caught sight of who it was, his face changed. Elder Huo. This Elder Huo was a fire spirit of the heaven and earth who was born from the source of fire itself. His strength was extraordinary, and his mastery of the fire element was second to none. Grand Master, this time around, I've found a disciple who has an innate fire body. At the same time, he's able to bring the Tao into his spirit. Therefore, I brought him back to the sect. This must be the heavens that are blessing our sect themselves, Elder Huo declared excitedly. He then spread out his fingers, and a tuft of flames burst out from it furiously. This ball of flames seemed as though it had no temperature on the surface. However, the temperature within was extremely high in reality, as though it could burn anything in the world to ashes. When the Grand Master caught sight of the ball of flames, his face changed. Evidently, he had discovered the peculiarity of the flames. Grand Master, these flames are manifested from the fires of the heaven and earth. Even though he was born from the same origin as myself, his potential is even higher than mine, Elder Huo continued. The Grand Master swept with his robes as a vast power burst forth and contained the ball of flames within it. Gradually, the ball of flames began to change and transform. Eventually, it manifested into a physical body that looked like he was 12 to 13 years old. The skin of this young boy was snow-white all over. However, when he burst his eyes open, one could see 2 tufts of flames raging within them. Even his forehead had a fire imprint emblazoned on it. When this young man opened his mouth, a ball of flames spurted out and gushed into the void. The moment it made contact with the void, it started melting and turning into ashes immediately. The face of the Grand Master was solemn right now. He spread his palm open and contained the flames. Indeed, he's extraordinary. To think that he would possess such strength even at birth. The Grand Master was elated right now. It was as though he had just discovered an utmost treasure. Elder Huo let out a smile. Grand Master, I think that this fire spirit has only barely begun to think. We can categorize him as one of the remnants of the sect and groom him properly. Yes, that will do too. Right now, his mental state is like a white sheet of paper. If we were to indoctrinate him with the ideas of the sect, he would definitely work hard for the sect with all his heart. The Grand Master said. Qing Yangxi, who was standing at the sides, was stunned. He then hurriedly added on, Grand Master, what about my? The Grand Master waved his hand dismissively, we'll just let him be an inner sect disciple then. But Grand Master, that disciple that I've uncovered. Qing Yangxi tried his best to fight on. Even though it was pretty decent to be an inner sect disciple, it was still a world of a difference when compared to remnants of the sect. There was no way to compare between the two at all. Alright, that will do. There are only a limited number of openings. The Grand Master replied. Qing Yangxi was dumbfounded right now. This disciple that he had brought back was extremely incredible. As for this plaything that Elder Huo had brought back, how could it be considered at the same level as that disciple he brought back? But, it seemed as though nothing he was going to say now would do. The Grand Master seemed to have already made up his mind. Was there truly no way about this at all? After the Grand Master took his leave, Elder Huo stood forth and came before Qing Yangxi's face. Ah, Qing Yangxi, my apologies. Seems like this casual trip of mine has already brought back a paragon. Guess I took your limelight away, HMPH. Qing Yangxi snorted coldly. For a moment, he was truly frustrated. How was he to tell that lad? That was a supreme paragon that was discovered by him, Qing Yangxi. No matter what, he must definitely bring that lad to great heights. Chapter 980 All of you are blind. Chapter 980. All of you are blind. Lin Fan had been waiting outside for quite some time now, and was getting somewhat impatient. Just what in the world was this Qing Yangxi up to, taking so long and not returning yet? But at this moment, Qing Yangxi's figure appeared in Lin Fan's line of sight. Along the way, Qing Yangxi was scolding out at the entire FC King family descendants of Elder Huo. But, when he appeared before Lin Fan, his face changed as he let out a wondrous smile that was wider than anything else. Everything has been settled. You are now an inner sect disciple. Do you know, the moment the Grand Master heard that you are such a genius, he was exhilarated and could not wait to pull you into the ranks of inner sect disciples. Now, you get to have a broken mountain peak of your own. Qing Yangxi's face was filled with joy. The surrounding disciples were stunned. Inner sect disciple. Even though being an inner sect disciple was pretty decent, they knew that this junior brother before them was a paragon. For him to be able to take down a true immortal state lower level being is just an immemorial ancient state upper level being, what sort of tyrannical existence was that? Did the Grand Master get shot in the head or something? He was truly not going to give a disciple as such the seat of a remnant. Naturally, these were just thoughts in their minds. If they were to truly dare say out these words, they would be struck to death for sure. When they looked at how Elder Qing Yangxi's face was as per normal, and in fact, looking pretty overwhelmed, they naturally understood that he was just trying to scam Lin Fan by telling him how precious it was to be an inner sect disciple. Inner sect disciple? Lin Fan was a little confused when he first heard of it. But, when he caught sight of the envious faces on everyone around him, he felt pretty good inside his heart. Seemed like this inner sect disciple position was pretty incredible. Fair enough. At least, he had obtained a status that was befitting of him. Congratulations senior brother Lin on becoming an inner sect disciple. Li Qing cupped his fist and congratulated. Even though Lin Fan had entered the sect later, because his cultivation state was higher, his position was naturally higher than theirs as well. Therefore, it was only right for them to address him as senior brother. You're too kind. Lin Fan chuckled out and returned the greeting. Let's go. We'll go choose a broken peak for you. Qing Yangxi chuckled out. However, he was still cursing out at the Grand Master in his heart. If you guys refuse to believe me, so be it. I am not getting any younger now, and there's a limit to my innate potential as well. But, even if that's the case, this old man shall give it a shot this time around to try and raise this paragon on my own, so that he can whack the faces of all of you old fools. Qing Yangxi thought. This was especially the case for that Elder Huo. He had Qing Yangxi hopping in rage. That bloody dog FC King Fire mixed bread. Who knew if that SH*T that he brought back was his B***starred child or something? And, he dared to have the guts to say that he found it by coincidence. Mother *C King Dog's tea. Not long afterward, Lin Fan, Qing Yangxi, and the others floated gently in the void. In front of them, many broken peaks were floating around in the sky, coming in all sorts of shapes and sizes. Every single broken peak had a palace on it. The unoccupied palaces looked extremely ordinary, and one could not tell anything different about them. But, those broken peaks that were occupied by others emitted an extremely thick spirit chi. There were also varying degree of shimmering lights that were shrouding these broken peaks. There are so many. Lin Fan realized that there were many occupied broken peaks here. There were at least thousands, or perhaps tens of thousands of them here. This inner sect disciple thing was way too worthless, wasn't it? That's right. There are many broken peaks. Take a look below. That's the area where the outer sect disciples reside. Qing Yangzi pointed out. When Lin Fan looked down, he furrowed his brows slightly, so cramped. Look further down. That's where the servant disciples are. Qing Yangzi pointed out once more. Lin Fan looked further down as pointed out. Bloody hell, that was so pathetic. The houses were simple and cramped together. This was even worse than back in the Xuanwang world. And, what are those over there then? Lin Fan pointed over at the distance where there were 10 heaven-piercing peaks. They were boundless in might, and countless of treasures wrapped around the surroundings of the peaks. Rainbow-colored gleams of lights extended out as a myriad of rainbows kowtowed towards the peaks themselves. It looked extremely spectacular. When Qing Yangzi turned around to look at those peaks, his face changed slightly. He then returned to his usual expression while saying, "Those are nothing. They are the descendants of the upper echelons of the sect, the second generations. They're all useless, a bunch of FC King idiots." When Li Qing heard the words of Elder Qing Yangzi, his heart skipped a beat. Elder was being way too tyrannical now, wasn't he? Those peaks were where the remnants of the sect lived. None of those remnants were pushovers. If they had heard the elder saying such words, they might even break out into fights with the elder himself. Even though Qing Yangzi was an elder, he was only an elder in charge of recruiting disciples. Within the sect, he did not have that much of authority. Even the words of those remnants had more power than Qing Yangzi's. Oh, seems like there's also the practice of second generations taking the back door into the sect, Lin Fan nodded his head. He felt that this place was pretty decent. Let's not talk about those anymore. Take your pick. If there is any that you find a liking to, let this old man know. I'll help you make arrangements. Qing Yangzi veered the conversation away. Clearly, he did not want to stay on that topic. For Lin Fan, entering the Heaven and Earth sect was not for enjoyment. He was here to cultivate. All the utmost powerful beings and demonic gods of the secret ground were still waiting for him to rescue them. That one there then, Lin Fan pointed out at a peak while saying. All right. Qing Yangzi nodded his head and took out a jade tablet, infusing his powers into it. Immediately, a bright light shone out of the jade tablet that wrapped the entire broken peak into it. As though it was being pulled by gravity, it slowly flew before Lin Fan and the others. Activate. A small stream of water coiled around the entire broken peak and cleansed all the structures of dust. The withered trees and flora started flourishing as though they had just been given a new burst of life. Keep this with you. From now on forth, this broken peak is yours. Do you want to give it a name? Qing Yangzi asked. Name it Saint Devil Peak then. Lin Fan replied. Saint Devil Peak, that is a pretty decent name. The Tao's of both ends that encompasses everything. This will surely turn into something big. Qing Yangzi chuckled out. Lin Fan walked into the structures. Even though the surface area wasn't all that big, he had everything he needed. Pills room, weapons crafting room, cultivation room, herbs garden, etc. How is it? Pretty decent, right? I'll have you know that the privileges of being an inner sect disciple are immense. Qing Yangzi smiled out, opening parenthesis closing parenthesis. Not too bad. Lin Fan nodded his head in satisfaction. The treatment towards inner sect disciples is pretty decent. Take a good rest first then. I'll have someone send over the stuff related to the sect later on. Qing Yangzi said. All right. Qing Yangzi and the others left the broken peak. Elder, senior brother Lin's potential is second to none. Why did the Grand Master not give him the seat of a remnant? Li Qing asked puzzledly. Don't talk about it anymore. Something cropped up midway. That bloody damned elder who spouted out with some unusual fire spirit of the heaven and earth out of nowhere. Because of that, the Grand Master's attention was taken in by him entirely. As for this seat of a remnant, there were only 10 to begin with. Initially, there was a single one that was open, and thus, there was some hope. But who would have thought that something as such would happen? Qing Yangzi said. That's a real pity, Li Qing replied. Go, let us go prepare everything for him. Qing Yangzi pondered for a moment before gritting his teeth. This time around, he was going to go all out for it. How could such a paragon that was uncovered by this old man be allowed to sink into the depths of nothingness just like that? No matter what, he would have to help this lad grow. He would have to gamble with everything he had. One fine day, he would definitely let those guys know that not giving Lin Fan the seat of a remnant was a blind and wrong choice made by them. In the entire sect, this old man was the brightest of them all. Even though Li Qing did not know what Qing Yangtze was going to prepare for Lin Fan, when he caught sight of that expression of the latter wanting to go all in, he was stunned as well.